Not sure my voice needs it, but we'll start with the district highlights. And then we're going to do something just a little bit out of order because we have a couple of people that are going to be leaving early to make sure that they're able to get to other things. As many of you know, it's a busy time of year here in the school district. So we will have, I believe, one member of the audience, if both are interested in speaking on the same subject, one member of the audience give the public comment prior to the since time immemorial curriculum, and then we'll move to the student board representative presentation with Elise Ozanich, and then after that, and after the student board updates that they both have to get out pretty quickly, we'll have the rest of the public comments if you're interested in speaking. With that said, I want to just quickly recognize that last week, maybe even week and a half ago, we had the best of the best ceremony at the VPAC at the middle school, and it was a fantastic night. And I especially want to single out those teachers that are retiring from Selah School District with over 30 years of experience, combined experience, not combined experience, Julie Archer, Candy Calvert, Kristen Jared, and Chandra Anderson, N.K. Smith, are all sadly leaving us after their entire career in the Selah School District, along with a number of other retirees. We're going to miss them greatly. And I also wanted to point out, and we'll hear in a moment about Aubrey's work, but I want to point out the volunteers, Eric Newmeyer and Gina Obert. Eric, as many of you know, is unofficially the voice of the Vikings. Now even more than ever, with Joe Cosgrove stepping back from some of those duties. Eric is an unbelievable volunteer and just a great community member in Selah. And Gina Obert is the master gardener. For those of you who weren't here at the Best of the Best Awards, it was, what do they call her, Grandma G or something like that? Man, just an incredible thing that's happening at the middle school with the combination of the master gardeners collaborating with the new greenhouse at this middle school, helping students get involved in agriculture and career and technical education, starting way back in 6th grade. So I wanted to highlight that from a personal level of the Best of the Best Award winners, and congratulate everyone who was recognized for that. And now I'll turn it over to Kevin, who has a couple of highlights from the Washington Association of Superintendents, I believe.
Thank you. Each year, the Washington Association of School Administrators, also known as Superintendents of the State of Washington, get the opportunity to recognize people within their own school district. This year, we have 2 awards to recognize. We have 1 student award and 1 community award. The first award is called the Community Leadership Award. It is in recognition of outstanding community leadership and contributions to the improvement of public education. From the Selah School District, Aubrey Holwegner. Thank you, Aubrey. If you don't know, for the audience, Aubrey's been instrumental in starting a parents and community safety committee to help the school district with their improved areas of safety and security. And we are in the process now of submitting some grants to the Department of Justice and hopefully some funding to continue our improvement. All that has gone through Aubrey. So Aubrey, thank you on behalf of our students and our entire community. Next, WASA as well allows each school district to recognize 1 student, and it is called the Student Leadership Award. And this year's recipient is, I think, the epitome of what this award was designed for. This award recognizing outstanding student leaders who have created or played a significant role in initiatives or programs that promote inclusivity, access, equity, or social justice in their school and our entire community. This certificate is awarded to Yabi Ruark of Selah High School.
Congratulations, Aubrey and Yabi. That's just you guys are both fantastic assistants in the Selah School District, and we appreciate everything you've done. Next on the agenda is an Executive Director for Student Learning report on the since time immemorial curriculum adoption. But we received a written statement from a community member who is here today, who I believe Mr. Dufault has agreed to read his statement prior to us having the conversation about the adoption of the curriculum. So Mr. Dufault, if you would step to the microphone, if you're comfortable doing that. I should also mention, let me see if I can give this reading here. We invite all community members to address the board on an issue or topic. The agenda item titled Suggestions, Comments from the Audience is for any comments related to topics that are not on the agenda. It so happens this one is. The audience can also provide informal comments on specific agenda items after being recognized by the board president. Individual remarks are limited to 3 minutes. Patrons making comments are asked to begin by identifying themselves. Please appoint a spokesperson if a concern is a group concern. If desired, you may email written documentation to the executive assistant to be included as part of the official meeting record. While the board will listen to all public comments carefully, the board cannot respond to the comments spontaneously or without further deliberation. The board may direct the superintendent to respond to the issues expressed at a later date. Complaints about specific personnel will not be heard in open session and will not be part of the record of any public meeting. Harassing or derogatory statements about any persons or groups of persons will not be heard. Okay, that's our official boilerplate. Jeremy, thank you for coming here this evening. I'll set a timer for 3 minutes and give you kind of a heads up when we get close.
Great, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I had an opportunity to review the since time immemorial curriculum, and I emailed you all some concerns that I had with it. I'm sure you've read all of those, and so I won't repeat them here. I think the biggest issue for me is that there is some particular books that are in the curriculum, the people's history or indigenous people's history of the United States, that really says some fairly derogatory things about our country, about the United States military, about Christianity, and it seemed like it was something that probably would not be appropriate for a curriculum to be included. And I outlined some of the items here. There's a section titled "Settler Parasites Create the Virginia Colony." There's one particular section that says the continued popularity of and respect for the genocidal sociopath Andrew Jackson is another indicator. The essential soul of the American is that of a killer. There's another one that says all of our most revered presidents, Jefferson, Jackson, Lincoln, Wilson, both Roosevelt's, Truman, Kennedy, Reagan, Clinton, Obama, have each advanced populist imperialism. All the presidents after Jackson march in his footsteps. There's another one that's section titled North America is a Crime Scene. And then the story of the New World is horror. The story of America is a crime. I think that there's a place for Native American history in our schools. I think that's important, especially given where we live in proximity to the Yakama Nation. And there are some great sources. I appreciate Alicia giving me the opportunity to go through and look at all the materials on the table. Then I purchased them on my own. This one in particular, the People of Cascadia, Pacific Northwest Native American History. This is something fairly similar to what I remember reading when I was in high school, taking Pacific Northwest history. It doesn't whitewash the past. It doesn't gloss over the things that happened to Native Americans in our country that are tragic and that we should talk about. But it doesn't go as far as some of the materials that I found in particular that I outlined in that letter that I hope, if this does move forward, can be removed from that curriculum before it's adopted. Also, too, just in general, the since time immemorial curriculum, while it's important and I think could be a great resource in the library, it's not yet mandated under state law, to my understanding. And so with all the things that our teachers are doing right now to try to get our kids up to speed, get them caught up from COVID, I think it's important that we focus on the basics, on the reading, on the writing, on making sure that we're hitting our metrics as a community. And this is just kind of one more mandate that I would hate to impose on our teachers. I have 2 young kids in the Selah School District, and I go in there and volunteer as often as I can. And I see what they're dealing with. It's difficult, and there's a lot of things that they're trying to fit in to the day. and another mandate from the state before it's required is something that I hope maybe could be reconsidered before we move forward. I really appreciate the time. Thank you so much. And thanks for your service to our community and for making Selah such a great place to work and live and raise a family and go to school.
Thank you very much, Mr. Defoe. All right, so we will, before we get to the rest of the public comment, we will hear from Alicia Jacob on as I mentioned, as it happens. Oh, is there anyone else that has comment on this topic? Thank you for saying that. We have at least one other person who wants to make a public comment. Yeah, I have Miss Ackerman on the sign-up sheet. Okay. All right, Alicia.
Is the comment related to the curriculum adoption?
Oh, all right. Then I'd like to recognize our next public commenter, Daleen Ackerman.
Thank you. So yeah, I just had a brief chance to kind of look at some of the stuff, so not do a deep dive, but I had some similar concerns that there was stuff that it just, instead of just sort of presenting facts and I agree with Mr. Defoe. I mean, there's definitely a place for conversation about things that happen in history and to speak the truth of the good and the bad and all of it. But it seems to be presented in a very intentionally divisive way. And I also agree that maybe we shouldn't adopt it yet. It's not mandated yet. We have time to look at some other options that maybe aren't quite as divisive. And I really just would ask that you consider doing that. Just let's hold off. Let's look at some other stuff and just find something that isn't really focusing on the division, on the racism. This seems to be a big topic. I mean, racism is a reality in our world, unfortunately, but I think we just need to get away from that language and that talk instead of focusing on things that have happened or the negative of things is finding ways to come together and just instead of also assuming that something bad that happens is due to racism, it can just be due to bad behavior, human sin nature that wants what they want. There's greed and theft and all those things that happen, and it isn't because of racism necessarily. So I think painting, the biggest concern I have with what's happening today is these broad strokes of, oh, you're from this group, so you're this. And I thought that's what the intent was to get away from. But this seems to be cementing it and presenting it in that way, like, oh, this group is good, this group is bad, instead of looking at people as individuals and evaluating each circumstance on its own instead of in a general way. The biggest concern I have with that is that really those are tactics that are used by revolutionaries. And I feel like that's what's been happening in our country and in our culture is a revolution attempt. And this is all part of that, keeping us divided. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to share my concerns and ask that you just please hold off and let's look at some better material. Thank you.
Thank you very much. But before I'm going to put this back over on there, we'll have public comment on anything else that people want to comment on. Oh, thank you, Kevin. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the since time immemorial curriculum before we get to our presentation? Okay, great. Alicia.
All right, thank you. So today I'm going to be presenting on the materials that our committee, and a lot of them are here today that worked on this, with ideas of where we want to incorporate since time immemorial. You'll notice that there's been a name change that happened this year in the legislature. So since time immemorial was really championed by John McCoy, who was one of the legislators in Washington State. He's he was a Tulalip tribal member. He has since passed away. But you will see that now as you go through, you'll see that naming of the curriculum. So I'm going to jump through this because I know we have a lot of things. It's just my usual slides, but really what I want to focus on for today is that what we're looking at with the since time immemorial is really part of our Viking promise, where we want to meet the needs of all of our students and to provide a safe and secure environment for all of them. And we have, as you go through, you'll see some of the work that we've done where we've realized how bringing in a Native perspective into our curriculum and into our materials provides students that may not have had that voice, an opportunity for their voice to be heard. It also gives different perspectives. And that's really what this is all about, is a different perspective to be provided. I am going to preface that this really isn't a curriculum. That's why you'll notice it just said adoption. It didn't say curriculum adoption, because what this is resources that we're embedding into what we currently teach. So for example, third grade, they're using this book in their unit, and they're going to bring in different American plays. They're doing a tall tale unit, and this is already part of that. So what they're going to be doing is emphasizing a little bit more of what the Confederated Tribes or bands and tribes of the Yakama Nation, which is our local tribe, how do their tall tales look? What are some of their legends? So it isn't a separate curriculum. So we didn't have any parents come to the viewing. We had 10.5 hours where there was opportunity for people to come and check all the materials out. Mr. Defoe, as he said, he came when we were doing the final viewing for the Instructional Materials Committee. And I said, you could go ahead and review everything. We're not hiding it. Still in my office. All the materials are there. But it's not one where, like when we did the ELA adoption, where I could say, here's the Houghton Mifflin materials. This is variety materials. And there are variety materials that we need to have ensured that our closest tribal entity, which is the Yakama Nation, has said these are materials that we believe are appropriate and accurate to use. So it is a little bit different than what we do with typical adoption processes. So I just want to make sure that you guys understand that. Why is this not moving forward? Clicked on me? No. There we go. So this is a review. We had staff from all buildings, which was a nice preschool all the way up to high school. We had a representative from each grade level. They acted as a liaison. So they would come. We met multiple months starting in November all the way through April that we met together, and even into May this year with some of the meetings we had. They looked at what was provided to us by OSPI and the Yakama Nation. Where does that fit? Made decisions based on that, took it back to their teams to get feedback. And ultimately what I'm presenting to you today is the work that they did. That was all them. That wasn't me. I just helped guide the work, but they really dug into what are we currently doing. Really, as Mr. Defoe mentioned, is this shouldn't be an add-on. It's and how do we enhance what we teach? And that's really the focus that they took with this, is to try not to make it to, it's like we have to cut all of this out to do it. Instead, how do we enhance what we're already doing? Just an awareness of where all the tribes are. You'll notice that, and this is one of the lessons we have with students, is, why are all the tribes over towards the water, where the resources are? But it does give a map of there is a variety of tribes in Washington. There's 29 that are federally recognized, and there's 6 that are not. And all of those have a rich culture, and that's part of what this requirement from the state is saying, is we should be expanding on that and making sure that our families and our students understand that and know that. The other piece with this is the ceded land. And so when different tribes across our nation ended up going into treaties, they had lands which they would call their usual and custom lands, which is where they would have lived and roamed prior to settlers coming to the United States. So you'll notice, like with the Yakama Nation, and I can point, right? So, well, oh, there we go. So this is where the reservation is. This brown land is all their ceded land, which would be their accustomed natural and accustomed land. So they actually still have rights. Selah is part of that. And so that's where part of what the state has said is why you need to collaborate with the most local tribe with you, is because lands, even if it's not on the reservation, was actually the lands that they used to roam back before other people were here. So I'm going to go through 3 different parts: the background, requirements, and the process. And that's Mount Adams, which is really a key feature in the Yakama Nation and just the processes that they do. But I'm going to go through those 3. And again, from those of you that have been here when I've done curriculum adoptions in the past, I went through these, but they will look a little different because of the format of what STI looks like versus an ELA or a math adoption. And feel free to ask questions as we go. So there are some backgrounds as to why we're here today. So in 2005, and this was with John McCoy back in that time, that is when there was first legislation that was passed across the state that says that each district is encouraged to incorporate. So at that point, it was may do language, right? It was just, we would like you to do this. And again, it was stated when you do a social studies adoption, they would like to. Right after that, 2 years later, OSPI partnered with all the tribes and created the STI curriculum, which is on the website and have been endorsed by the tribes in the state of Washington. They'll actually call that, they call it ready to go resources. Those are ones you could just take right into your school districts and don't need to have any additional interaction with the tribes that either are close to you or other tribes. In 2011, OSPI created the Office of Native Education. In 2015, this is when the law from 2005 was changed, and it was changed from a may to a shall. It also had the social studies adoption attached to it, but it also included that at that point you had to collaborate with the most neighboring federally recognized tribe that you had. So what has come with that is, and I kind of jump one down to the basic ed compliance, is that's part of our basic ed compliance. Every year we do a form that goes to the state board that says, have you done these things? The last 2 years, we have said we have not done STI, and it's been as a notice that's saying you need to the following year. So there has been urgency. And part of that is what the state's finding is we've had this in place since 2005. Very few districts across the state have got it because we're not doing social studies adoptions. If we're funding is restricted, you're putting it into ELA, math, and science. And so that's where I think the state board is being a little bit more forceful with us. I'm saying and giving us, even when we got the notification that we had been approved by the state board with our compliance, it stated this was one area that we needed to consider. And then in 2014, we had the naming. So that's just the background of where we're at. One thing I skipped to is in 2018, STI is now a portion of teacher prep. So all the universities in the state of Washington, when you do a teacher prep program, you actually learn about STI, you teach a unit, it's part of that. So we've seen it in a couple of the individuals that were part of our committee had as teacher prep had experience with that. So teachers are understanding it coming into our system and are expecting to see it because they get it as part of their teacher prep program. Any questions just with those timelines? Okay. So that was really the timelines in the background that got us to where we're at today, but we do have requirements. So when we were talking and we met in November with the Yakima Nation, OSPI, ESD, and quite a few different school districts across our region, because, and one thing to realize is for us, it's a one-to-one correspondence with the Yakima Nation. For them, it's corresponding with every school district, whether it's on the reservation or off. So for them, it's a lot. So we're not going to get a stamp of approval from them. What they're giving us, these are the resources that we would like you to use and utilize those best what meets it. So there is some things, and we're partnering with them. We want to work with them. We're hoping that we can expand what we're doing and get them to come into our schools and we can go to visit them. But that's where in just the infancy in that stage. But we had these guiding principles. And one of the main things that they had stated when we look at incorporating STI into our school system is multiple perspective. And so one thing that I had shared with the committee when the instructional materials committee came is what you're seeing is one perspective with these materials, because we have other perspectives already in our materials. This is a it might be sometimes a counter perspective, or it might be one similar, but it's just the way that they're seeing things were different. So that was a big key of what we had to look at was, is there things that are out, resources that are out there that can give a different perspective? The other thing with that is we looked at resources that would be used with students and resources that are for the teachers to have, because what my committee had told me is, I mean, for a lot of them, and they may nod when I say this was a awareness that they didn't have, and they learned a lot through the process. And so we knew that teachers are going to need that as well, which is some of what we'll talk about, what we're asking for the future. But really it's that multiple perspective, which I know one of the books that was mentioned that talked about Thanksgiving, that the book that was mentioned is actually the Wampanoag, I want to say their name correctly. It's a passed down oral tradition of what Thanksgiving meant to them. That's their perspective. That's not us to say that's not their perspective, but that was a book that the kindergarten and fifth grade wanted as a resource if they wanted to talk about different perspectives to students. And then I'm not going to go through all of them that you can be there, but there's definitely controversial issues, and so being upfront and honest and being developmentally appropriate with that too, because we want to make sure that what we're speaking, it makes sense for the ages that we're talking with. And then that idea of connecting head with heart with the hands, that's that idea that the head is, we want to critically analyze what's being given to us. We want students to ponder and wonder about what they read. We want to have some reflection, and that's where the heart is, and the hands is we want there to be something practical that comes from it. And so those were 4 of the 7. These are the other 3 guiding principles that we were tasked with ensuring our materials would actually evolve and show for our students. And then one here too is that we have to stress the resiliency. There was, and this was outside of STI, but there was a review done on curriculum for Native Americans, and I think it was 97% of the textbooks that are used in curriculum has them starting with Thanksgiving. There was never anything that ever, like, they were never here before that. That's the only time that there was no civilization with them prior to that. And so it's that idea that they were here before that and they're still here today. So that they really emphasize that is that there is a resiliency, but that it's still here. The Native population is still here. So those were things that we were looking through as we went through our materials. And then also we had some essential questions. And these were the ideas that as we go through, not any one given year needs to, but through the course of all of our preschool to 12th grade, will students be able to get some of these components as they go through. So that was another lens that we looked at. And the document I shared showed where those questions would be targeted based on the certain grade levels. So those were our requirements that we were looking at when we went and reviewed the materials. And then we started our process. I had mentioned earlier that we met with the Confederated Tribes and Bands of the Yakama Nation with OSPI. It was a convening that was at Heritage back in November. And I think at that point too, that the committee may not have known exactly what we were getting into because a lot of people didn't know what STI was. And it was a great opportunity for us to learn from the tribe, to also learn from OSPI. And one of the things that a school district that was there was the Mount Adams School District that had embarked on this journey with the Yakama Nation 2 or 3 years before us. So they had a more robust, and that was what they came and shared all their resources, which was one that the Yakama Nation said, please use those resources if you'd like. After that, we came together just to decide what's going to be our why with this and how do we start this journey, because we know it's going to be a journey that we're going on. And so this is what came up. It actually started off of some of the STI work that we had that day, but really there's benefits not only for our Native students, and you'll see them up there, but there's also benefits for others. So it's just really grounding it that this is a benefit for all students, even though we are emphasizing a population that their voice hasn't been heard in the past. So our process then after we went to the convening, we came back together to decide like where are we going next, how are we going. There was 3 main resources that had came to us during that convening. One was using the Sense Time Memorial. As I stated, and you go to the website, you'll see that it's been approved by the federally recognized tribes. We started diving into those materials, and I say we, but I mean them. We also looked at Native Knowledge 360, which is through the Smithsonian Institute. It does historical, but it also does present day, and it has videos. It looks at it more globally through all First Peoples, and there's some that's even into Canada, but it gives a global perspective. And then we also use the Mount Adams STI website. They have an actual website for all of their materials where they've embedded OSPI, some Native 360, and a lot of videos of, there's an elder that just recently passed away from the Yakamas. It was Virginia Beavert. She was well known as really being the one that's kept the language alive, and she did a lot of oral storytelling. And part of what is difficult with Native history is that it's oral. So there isn't a lot that's written down, so that when you get a book like the Yakama Nation, they actually created a book. Virginia was one of the authors on the legends. Like this is, I mean, and that's what they mentioned to us when the tribe was there, is like, this would have never happened without Virginia because it's an oral tradition. So now we have resources to use that we wouldn't have had in the past. So they spent multiple months, about 4 or 5 months, going through the materials, working with their teams, bringing it back, diving in, trying to figure out the best way to make it meaningful, which is why I'm bringing it here today, but also to make sure that it makes sense with what we're doing. That these aren't just standalone units that just pop in and you do it and then you go away from it. They really worked at how do we embed it in what we're already teaching so we can see the trajectory of what we're doing, as well as the building upon it, which was great. We also went to the Yakama Nation Cultural Museum, so we got to experience that, which one of the things that came out of that is we determined that we really need to have all of our students attend as well as all of our staff, just to get an understanding of that history and what are the experiences that are being lived through today. And so that's one offering that we would like to do, is with our 5th graders, that they would attend the museum. And then last, they came up with the integration document that was there that I had shared with you. So this was really just kind of the scope when we met the first time as a team. This is what we talked through. Like, this is the process that we did to get to where we are today. Even though we still have some of that will happen based on your guys' approval. I think also what's important with this process is, as I mentioned before, it's different than a curriculum adoption because it's not a set curriculum and it's embedded. It's almost more like supplemental because we're adding in pieces to what we're currently doing. But we felt that the visibility of bringing it, the transparency of what we're doing was the most important thing. We wanted it to be visible. We want it to be transparent and to say that we do take, we believe this is important for students. And so that's why it's coming to you. And we probably could have just done all of this through supplemental adoptions, which would have just gone through the principals instead. So after we met, came up with the materials that they would like to incorporate for next year. That's when we did the family, staff, and community viewing. We held that here at the district office, May 7th. It was from 7 to 5:30. And as I mentioned before, we didn't have anyone attend that. We did the instructional materials committee review on May 14th. All the members that attended approved the materials. They had an opportunity, our whole committee was there so they could ask any questions they had based on the grade level and the materials that were chosen. They got a chance to go through all of it. And the purpose of the instructional materials committee is not to agree or disagree with the materials. It's, did we follow the process that we had to? So we have a process that we were required to follow. So that's what they went through and reviewed and confirmed that we did. And then we have the budget, which I'll show in another slide. And then the last step after approval would be to order those materials. So our budget for this one is actually, which to be a pre-K-12 adoption, I mean, if you think of when I brought the ELA adoption, it was $350,000, right, for 6th through 12th grade. So this shows that it really is just looking at how do we embed resources in versus buying big items. We do have a few, like I mentioned, a few resources that are specific to teachers. Some of the things that we are looking at is the Burke Museum out of University of Washington. They have what's called Burke boxes. And so those can be, you ask for them, they come and they mail them to the schools. We can get those, and they had ones that were appropriate for 6th and 7th grade. So they had requested those. So they would come, and all those are tangible items that the students can feel and hang out and like feel and see that has to do with different themes. The other one was, I mentioned before, was going to the museum. So we would like to have that through the 5th grade. 5th grade has a field trip right now, and any of my cis people can agree, or if I'm saying this incorrectly, please let me know, but is that we do a 5th grade. So we're looking at this becoming the 5th grade field trip that we do. And it would be over multiple days, but when we spoke with the museum curator, she said that they have a library there as well. So it's kind of like 3 stations, and you rotate the kids through those 3 different stations. So we could take about 90 kids at a time to go. And so we figure out like if we do multiple in a day or one per day, but that would be something that we think would be appropriate. And it also is very culminating because they're learning about traditions and cultures, and then they actually get to see it. And so there'd be some connections they can make to what they see in the museum with the learning they've had for the last 6 years. And then we also would like all of our staff to be able to attend. And you can feel free to ask any of the committee that was here, but I know when we got done and we were debriefing, that was the first thing. We need our students to see that, and we need our staff to be able to see that. So that was one that we're requesting over the multiple years. So that would be a reoccurring cost that we would have until we could get everybody through it. And then it would just be for new hires. And that would be part of our new hire process as they would go and attend. Other school districts in the region do that, and they've been doing that for multiple years, but we would like to do that as well. So I think that, and then the rest of it you see up there is mostly books. There's some that, like I said, like at the elementary level, a lot of times it was a read aloud. So it's not going to be that the students have the books. There's a few, and actually, to be honest, we didn't buy any books that are going to be a one-to-one for students. It was either going to be resources in the classroom or it was going to be a read aloud. There's a few too that I believe were online. Correct me, or like, do I see some nods that we were able to get for free? And so those were resources that we have as well. And then there's some reoccurring, like our 4th grade, they did some building. Theirs was specific to Selah Falls, and they piloted it this year. And so they had some materials. So it's very, very minimal when it comes for us to be able to continue doing this work. So, and with that, I do want to say a special thanks to the committee members because they were awesome. They spent a lot of time, dedication. I think learning that came along with it too, to make sure that we could look at a way that we could embed the materials in an appropriate way, that it was meaningful, but also that it would enhance the students' learning.
To follow up on that, I see there's a great number of them in the audience. If you were part of the materials committee that came up with this curriculum or with this adoption, could you just stand so we could recognize you in the audience here tonight?
They're all like, "Aw."
Thank you very
Yay.
much for your work. Thank you very much. It's a lot of work, and we have been hearing about your work periodically from Alicia and are very excited about this curriculum. Kevin, do you have something you want to say?
If I guess, the couple things that I wanted to reaffirm here is that although this is coming to you and maybe coming to our community, this is not something that just all of a sudden started. Alicia and I have been working in this field in partnership with the Yakima Nation, with the ESD 105, with the Mount Adams School District, the Toppenish School District, Wapato School District, Yakima School District, and the Office of Native Ed. We do have a colleague who works now in the Office of Native Ed, Mr. Henry Strom, who is a wealth of information for us. And in talking with all of them over the course of the last 2 years and going to Heritage and going to the events, it's been apparent to me that the Yakima Nation is asking us to implement when we're ready, okay? And to make sure that we have followed the things that they have put in place for us and worked with OSPI. But at the same time, they've given us the Mount Adams School District to model after. And Alicia said something that we're not going to get the stamp of approval from the Yakima Nation. They're working with all the districts within the region, and it's not going to be one of them individually. That's all they would do. And so they've given us the banks of the river per se, as this is what you need to do for our approval. And so we believe over the course of the last 2 years, and now coming to you with what actually the materials are, we believe we've done all the background work in order to bring it to you with the support of the Yakima Nation, OSPI, and the other school districts that have already implemented. Just wanted to add that and make sure that was clarified as well.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments?
Yeah, actually, I've got quite a bit on this, as you may already know. So first of all, this, where there's no funding that will be withheld from the school district if we do not adopt this. Is that correct?
No, there's not funding. It's part of our basic ed compliance documentation that we have to do. If there's a way that they look at it, like minutes, there's certain things that you can get held back on those ones. This one's not. It's a requirement though, is what they're saying, is it needs to be happening. Yeah.
Where is the requirement? Because I did go through and read both the bill that was passed in 2015 and the proposed bill ESB 1322 that did not pass this year, which would have required it. And so we default back to the bill in 2015 that did pass, and it's only required to adopt this if we update our social studies curriculum. Is that accurate?
How I guess, yes, I guess the way I would look at it is it is required when you update a social studies adoption. They're saying you will do it. It is required when you do social studies. So you can do it at any point. It's required when you do a social studies. Like you can't do a social studies and not incorporate it in.
But
you
we're
can
not
do it
doing
with
a
any
social
of
studies update right now.
them. No.
So technically, the reason why I ask is because when I read through the slides, it was presented to me as if we had to adopt this right now. But really, it's just a recommendation. Is that not accurate? Am I not understanding that? According to state law.
According to state law, no. According to the State Board of Education, required. We have a checklist that we turn in every year to make sure that we're in compliance with everything, and that has been identified as an area that we are not in compliance.
Okay.
And withholding funds and following law, you are correct.
And that's really where my concern lies. Well, part of where my concern lies. But also, as I read through the law that was passed in 2015, it consistently said that we will need to find funding, we will need to find funding. So to me, it seems like this is an unfunded mandate, an unfunded curriculum, and I just don't feel like it's responsible given the $2 million that we had to cut from the budget this year to be adding something, even though it's $50,000, relatively small part of the budget. I just don't know that this is the right time. I agree with what Daleen said that I feel it is important to recognize Native history, but how much of the curriculum from OSPI, because that's being provided free, how much of that would we be using as part of this?
They were using parts. There isn't any that are using like a full unit. They're using components of units is what they're using. Yeah.
Yeah, and
And you'll
so,
notice they're either, how OSPI has them, they have them a level 1, a level 2, or level 3. So a level 1 is anywhere between 2 to 3 days, meaning like 10 to 15, 20 minutes in a day. You're not doing a full day of it. You can do, I think it's 2 to 3 days, 5 to 6, and then it's multi-week. Is that what the 3 different levels are with them? So a lot of them, what they chose is maybe 1 to 4 days is what we're looking at. Or they already have like a 6 to 8 week unit and they're incorporating this in. So it would say it's 6 to 8 weeks, but it's not just for the STI. It's already a unit we're doing and we're embedding it in.
yeah, and so my daughters have come home, they've talked about some of this stuff. The way that they feel is that Selah School District is presenting curriculum like this, and that they come home and they say, we have no culture as white people. We they feel like these types of programs are racist against white people. I have read quite a bit of the curriculum that's on the OSPI website. And this is part of the reason why I ran for school board was back in 2019, we asked to see a civil rights curriculum that was being presented at SIS, and they wouldn't give it to us until ultimately we had to have a couple meetings with the principal, and he provided it to us. And the first paragraph of that said, America was founded upon principles of racism, and Christopher Columbus was the first racist. There is a lot of similar language in the curriculum that OSPI has on their website that is like that. Jeremy Defoe, he sent an email to the board outlining some of these things. One of the items that he pointed out that is in one of these books, I believe, the history of the United States is a history of settler colonialism, the founding of a state based on the ideology of white supremacy, the widespread practice of African slavery, and a policy of genocide and land theft. Examples like that are throughout this curriculum. And I don't believe that about our founding fathers. I believe that it is at odds with Washington state law, where schools are required to teach patriotism. And stuff like that does not contribute to patriotism. It's divisive. And so I'm really opposed to this type of stuff being introduced into our schools. I think that we can teach Native history in a way that is not divisive. One of the things that I did read in the 100-year celebration of the Lewis and Clark expedition, there was a tribal member of the Yakima tribe who said, we need to use this time as a time to unify the white man and the natives and not divide it. And that's really what my goal would be, because when, like last week, they have an assembly at the middle school about racism. We're focusing on racism, and it's no wonder that a lot of students are engaging in racist behavior because it's at the forefront. We're talking about it all the time. We're saying that white people specifically are the problems, or causing all the problems in our society. So that's going to create resentment among minority groups. And so I just don't see the benefit of adding these types of materials into our curriculum. And I think, as Jeremy also said, I agree with, our academic performance is really poor. Why add something else to the teachers' plates? We're not doing a great job with what we have. So why add something else, especially something that I don't really see has a lot of academic value. I do think that it has immense cultural value, but not necessarily academic value. And I just, one of the videos that was on OSPI's website, and then I'll be done here, but I think you can see where I'm going with this. One of the commenters said, I think we have to blame some of the problems that tribes face on racism. Okay, maybe. It is racism because we don't want another group to have something that we don't have. I've never looked at someone who is not white and said, I don't want them to have what I have, or I don't want them to have the very best. And you know, the screenshot of that, it's just a big screen with racism written across it. And then it goes on to say, as much as we wish it weren't so, when different cultures collide, so that's assuming that cultures have to be at odds with each other, that they can't live in harmony, which is a lie. And there are disagreements between these cultures. good old Mr. Racism is often to blame. And that's part of one of the high school presentations on the OSBI website. And so I just think that right now is not the right time for the reasons that I've said.
All right, are there other comments or questions for Alicia?
Comment I make first is, I do have a lot of trust in the committee that put this together and Alicia. I think I would probably, if it's an option, to table it till June so that I can get my head around some of the topics Eric brought up, Jeremy brought up, Darlene brought up, and kind of meet with Alicia and kind of go from there. So, but it's not a slap in the face to the group that put it together, because I do have a lot of trust in them, but with this being kind of the situation is, I think that's what I'd be more comfortable with.
Any other comments or should we make a motion to table it, or do people want to have a chance to talk before we make a motion? And any other comments? Do you want to make a motion to?
Well, I'll introduce a motion and then I'd like a vote on it, a roll call vote. I move that we do not approve this curriculum tonight and that we wait until such time that it is required by state law.
I would also vote that we table it at least till June.
That's a different table. That's a different motion than was just offered. The motion Derek offered was to table it until it's required by state law,
Gotcha.
if I understand correctly.
That's accurate.
Is there a second for that motion?
And if there's no second, I'd just like to bring up a point of order that because this is a less formal meeting, a second is not always required. And so I would like to have a roll call vote on this.
Okay, I'm not a parliamentarian. Does anybody know if we're okay to do a roll call vote on this?
It is okay to do a roll call vote. I want to be clear though on what the motion is, because it's a difference between tabling and not approving. There's a very, very large difference on that. So let's be clear amongst the board on what they're going to be voting on, first of all, and then what the motion is, so everybody is on the same page when they do take their vote.
Would you like to clarify your motion
Yeah,
for us,
so
Derek?
the motion is to not approve the curriculum until such time that it is required by state law. So we do not approve it. That is the motion.
Gotcha. And is there anyone who would, I have a few things to say, but would anybody like to, I guess I'll start. Before we have the vote, there'll be a period of comment, I guess. I guess I'm, first of all, not a K-12 curriculum expert. And I rely upon, and I'm thankful for those curriculum experts in the room who have dedicated their professional expertise to this project. And my impulse is to put my trust in their work and their education and their experience. But also, from me, from a kind of a common sense perspective, believe that Native American history is American history. And as Alicia said, it's kind of an attempt to balance the perspective that this curriculum is meant to not be the perspective, but a different perspective on Native American history or on American history in general. So I'm would encourage my other board members to not approve Mr. Iverson's motion. Are there any other comments before we have a roll call vote?
I will take the roll call vote and I'll start down at the very end with Mr. Iverson. Mr. Iverson, how do you vote on the motion presented?
Yes.
Mr. Morford?
No.
Mr. Peters?
No?
Mrs. Michael? Mr. Catron?
Okay, so the motion fails. Would anyone like to, and perhaps Joe would, like to make a second motion or a different motion with regards, well, I'll make the motion. I move that we, because we've just recently received community input, in particular the written input that came from Mr. Dufault. And as Jamie pointed out, there's a lot to get our heads around with this curriculum and some of the issues, complex issues, as Alicia pointed out, sometimes controversial issues. And we certainly, I certainly appreciate the ability for people to have already reviewed this. But I feel like I need additional time to review the material and to vote definitively one way or another to adopt it. So I'll make a motion that we table the adoption of this material until our June business meeting. I guess, would anyone like to second that, or we could just vote for it as well? Okay, I don't necessarily feel like I am requiring a roll call vote, but if we do need one, we will do that as well. All those in favor of tabling this adoption until the June business meeting signify with an aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, so the curriculum is tabled until the, or at least our adoption of the curriculum is tabled until the June meeting. And I'd encourage board members to reach out to Alicia and to reach out maybe to people who have been involved in the creation of this I think much needed and very important curriculum, to reach out to those people who are experts in it. And if you have questions about it, there's parts of it that make you uncomfortable, that you get some answers and get a full chance to investigate it for yourself.
Alicia, is it possible to get a list of all the books that you'll be using and
Yeah. I
any
gave them-
other material?
It's in that document. That's all the books we're using, is that one that was linked to it. If I can go back, I don't have access to it anymore. Go back. Okay. I can show you which
Okay, yep,
document.
I see it.
It has, and
Apologize.
it's by each grade level, it has which ones, you'll see. One thing that I can also share with you guys is, because I had to create a document of everything we would purchase. It'll say whether it's a student version or a teacher read aloud or a teacher resource. So for example, the book that you were mentioning, the Indigenous Peoples History, that's a teacher resource. So it's not one that we're giving to students. It was a teacher resource for them to have understanding of things that are going on. So as I'd mentioned, at this time, we weren't buying any books for a one-to-one with students. It was all either read alouds or resources for teachers. But I can share that with you. I do have everything that was from the viewing I still have in my office. So if you guys do want to come and go through and look at those materials, you can just let me know, and then I can set everything up, because it took multiple tables to put everything out so you can see pre-K through 12th grade. But I have everything, so you can go through and see what was available for the community as well as for the IMC from the work that the team did.
Alicia, can I ask kind of a progress or process question? Yeah. So there are certain books that community members have marked as especially controversial, I guess I would say. Is our role as a board to approve the entire curriculum, or can we single out particular books to say we want these but not these? I mean, like I said, I'm not the curriculum expert, but how would the process work if there were books that we thought, that seems like it goes too far?
That's new territory. So I'm not sure. I mean, know the process after it's been adopted of what people can
Right,
do,
right.
right? If
There would be a formal book challenge that they would
Well,
ask.
and it's actually different, because this would be, we're bringing it to you as an adoption, which means that it follows the process that a parent can then request for the
Right.
material to not be used with their child. So that would be, and if it ends up being that there's one book that the community, it depends on the level of concern there is. If it's one or two people, it's just independent with their child. If it ended up being, we had a huge amount of families, that's when a book would be reviewed. So there's a different process. We've never had it where an individual component has been. So
Maybe more reason to figure out, give us a little bit of time to figure out some of those novel issues to this particular.
Yeah, and I do think it
circumstance.
will be important for you to see what is resources for teachers, what is it that'll be read alouds for students to have, and then or it like that teachers have as a resource for read aloud if they like to too, because I think that adds a different perspective than what some of it might be, that if we were expecting students to read it or to try to interpret it as well.
I also want to mention that I had a chance to speak with some of my colleagues at the college today. One who created the curriculum for Western Governors University for the class as well as the teacher prep class on teaching it. And I had a brief conversation with him today, but he offered his services to anybody on the board. So if you want to get in touch with him to ask what his opinion is on some of these materials, he's a curriculum expert who's designed the teaching part of this for WGU. And I think he'd be a great resource. I plan on picking his brain and Dr. Zontek's brain as well a little bit more.
And I would ask, I think it is important for you to actually see the materials that were selected and see what's expected. So on the information I provided you, like we'll say it was unit 1 or the from 3rd grade, you'll see at the viewing the actual documents that they're planning on using out of that with the
Oh,
viewing.
excellent.
And the
Great.
reason we just did it is because of all the different links. I couldn't put it up there. It's part of that unit, but you'll see the actual pieces that they're looking at, because it's not always a full unit that they're even considering with it. So
Anything else? Joe?
Just out of respect for Ms. Ozanich and her having to get to her presentation or her performance, one quick question is, I agree with a lot of what's been said tonight. Is an important element of American history. And as somebody who works and is on the reservation every day nearly, I see all sorts of things and some residual effects of that history. My concern is the history is the history, and some of it's really ugly, and some of it is less ugly, and some of it is good, right? Let's be honest. It's a mixed bag. My heart is for the people today and how this education is going to influence our kids in Selah to be good neighbors and to make things better for themselves and for people in our community. And so my question, I guess, is how much of this curriculum is focused on the westward expansion and the treaties and all the ugly stuff, and how much of it is focused on current day struggles and how we can be good neighbors.
And just briefly, I'll say is really K3. A lot of it's focusing on legends and like salmon. Even the preschool one, it's being a good neighbor is what part of what they do, and just what are family traditions. So a lot of that is when you get into the intermediate and the secondary, we already have history classes in there. So they're just embedding some materials into it. So we already do at 8th grade, we do a curriculum-based assessment that has to do with Indian Removal Act. And they've added some materials to that based on this. So we already had it there. It's just giving additional materials. So there are some of that there because it was. We were already teaching that, right? As part of it, because that was one where they were removed from it. This is just enhancing it. But developmentally, the first part is salmon. It's about family traditions, legends, and what does that mean? That's what the first 4 grade levels are about.
Great, thank you very much. And I know Alicia has to be somewhere as well. So we'll move on now to the.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yes, oh, and thank you very much for coming this evening and again for your efforts on this curriculum. Thank you. We'll move on now to the Student Board Representative Report. In particular, our Student Board Representative Elise Ozanich has been working on a senior project, I guess you would call it, as a member of the board, and would like to tell us what her progress has been and to kind of wrap her year up and her time as a board representative this evening before she has to get out of here as well. Where are you heading to next, Elise? What time is your choir performance?
My call time is 5:45.
Oh,
We're gonna make this fast.
we'll go quickly. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I decided to do my project this year on making faith-based resources available in our school. And it is a project that is very near and dear to my heart, and I'm very excited that I've gotten to work with it. So thank you guys very much for giving me the opportunity. I know it can be kind of a iffy subject, especially when it comes to having that kind of stuff in schools, but so far it's been very promising. So I wanted to start off with my testimony and how faith has moved in my life. Just has kind of a backstory as to why I chose this as my project. So for the first 3 years of high school, it was very rough. Obviously COVID was hard on a lot of people in my age group, and there was a lot of struggle with that. And I, like so many of my peers, had some very fun side effects of the isolation that came with social distancing. And so that came for me personally with really bad anxiety. And at its peak, I was having about 3 panic attacks a week. And by panic attacks, it's not like what you see in media. It's not fun and like, oh, look at me, I'm different, I have anxiety. It's like you cannot breathe, you can barely stand. There is no functioning outside of just absolute panic. But this summer, I had the chance to go back to a church camp that I've grown up with, and the people there changed my life, and I ended up getting baptized and getting the chance to be in the Word and in my religion has changed my life in ways that I can't even describe because it would go way too long. But I wanted to give my peers the chance to have those same tools and resources available. So my idea was that I would provide religious texts for students that were available but not pushed. So right now we have a space set up in the library that has 6 student study Bibles and 3 books of Mormon. I wanted it to be something that was inclusive and something that wasn't specific to one religion, and I wanted it to be a space where you could explore anything that would have the chance to help. And so the objective behind it was just to help out as many people as I could. And if I change one person's life, if I change one person's testimony, then I am very proud of what I have accomplished. My plan is to start in the high school, and I have a very close friend of mine who is involved in a lot of leadership at the school, and she will be taking over my project for me once I'm gone. And she's actually going to run for the student representative spot next year, so I'm very excited to see how she does with that. So my plan was to find somewhere safe in the school that would be a spot that is frequented but not busy. And my first thought was the counseling office, but I wasn't sure if that would be a space that would be right for it. So if you've ever been to the library at the high school, there's a little nook in the back right corner that has a table and some chairs, and it's just kind of a little study space. And that was the spot that I chose for this because it was a spot that was available to everyone, but wasn't like very in your face, very flashy. I intentionally did this as a soft launch, and there were no flyers put up, there was no announcements, there was nothing to be like, hey, guess what we have now? We have religious stuff in our school. Come, like, be religious. But it's an opportunity that's there if they want it. And that's all it's designed to be. So I wanted as many different religious texts as I could get my hands on. And so far, I'm starting with Bibles and Books of Mormon because those are our 2 biggest religions that we have here in Selah. We have a huge Mormon population. Some of my very close friends are Mormon, and I know several others who are Christian or Catholic and things like that. So I'm very excited to be able to get to share that. It's very hard to be like, here are my results for this project. So far that's what I've put together, and I have people set up who are going to continue this after I'm gone because I want this to be an ongoing thing and I want it to continue to grow after I've graduated. So some people who have been very important to this project. First of all, Heather Summers from Stone Church. She was instrumental in providing me with student study Bibles. She helped me pick them out. She and Stone Church, who are the partner for the high school, they provided the Bibles. They did everything. And then Cade McKee, who goes to high school with me, and his Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they provided us with Books of Mormon that we got to add to the presentation. And I would like to thank, of course, you guys for giving me the opportunity to get to share this and allow me to do a project that I'm very passionate about. So thank you very much.
Nice job, Elise. Would anyone like to ask? I know she's got a project, another project. Anybody have any questions or comments?
At least overall, would you say positive feedback, resistance? What do you see both, I guess, from staff, from faculty, and from students? Kind of how have you seen it, or kind of just no word?
From staff, there hasn't been really any word. The only staff that I've really talked to about it are Mrs. Ferguson and Mr. Steltz, who work in the library, who were, of course, very supportive. They're both very supportive people as a general rule. And they were totally on board and very open to the idea. The only word that I've heard from students so far was actually a really good interaction, because I was telling someone about it and their first reaction was, well, what about the other, religions, like the satanic religions and all these different things, that they are going to take this so far and they're going to think that it's a space for them too. And I was like, well, it is. That's the point, is it's supposed to be a safe space so that you can explore any religion of your choosing. And it was done very intentionally like that, so that if you are curious, but you don't have a family that is accepting to all viewpoints, or if you have a family that's following exactly one religion or doesn't follow any religion, that this is a place where you can find those tools and see how they can work for you and see what does work and your own individual beliefs. So that was the only thing that I've heard negatively about it, was that it might do exactly what it's supposed to do.
Elise, thank you again for your presentation. It's a thoughtful work that you're doing, hopeful work for, especially when you consider mental health, as I know it's important to you and your faith. And I love the idea of expanding this, growing to include native religions or indigenous peoples' religions, along with all of the world religions, or religions that might be practiced in Selah specifically or elsewhere. I might encourage just a couple of things to think about: a Spanish language translation for a student Bible or a study Bible, and to maybe leave a note in the study Bibles that you've written, maybe a handwritten note with your testimony or with encouragement. I think that might kind of be one of those little surprises that people who are in need of that kind word or that encouragement to keep going, that you're thinking about them and wishing them the best, as we do with you. So good luck this evening, break a leg, and thank you for your presentation. Any other comments or questions?
I'm going to respond to what you just said really
yeah.
fast. I love your idea of adding notes to the Bibles. I have a flyer posted above all of the books that I have set up in the library, explaining why they're there and who they can talk to if they have any questions. I put my personal email up. But the reason that I didn't put anything in the Bibles, because I had thought about maybe going through and highlighting verses that meant something to me, or going through and leaving like sticky notes and stuff like that. But I wanted the Bibles that were there to be for them and to be entirely their own in a religion or something that they might not have something of their very own. I wanted that to be theirs completely. So none of the Bibles have been touched, have been opened. They're still in their packaging. I mean, it's not like plastic packaging, but it's like they have their little book cover on them. So it is entirely their own, but there is a flyer with my contact information and explanation of why it exists.
Very cool. And thank you for your friend coming along as well. As you were speaking, as we've talked about this throughout the year, I've thought it might be interesting to see what other people in the community might contribute to this as well. I guess mainly because I thought of several different books that have been important to me from various world religions that I thought, oh, I'd love it if somebody happened upon this book in the library, almost like a little free library situation. That might be an interesting thing, is to see what the community could bring to it as well. Great. Thank you very much.
Elise, this is your last business meeting, correct?
Yep, this is my final presentation.
A pleasure.
Yes,
Done
it's-
great. Thank you very much.
It's been a really great time working with you guys. It's been a pleasure to get to be here and to see what you guys do behind the scenes. So thank you very much. I really much appreciate all the things you guys are doing and what I've gotten to see and be a part of the past 2 years.
Thank you, Elise. Thank you. Speaking of miracles, by the way, your brother's all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Michael went through quite an experience recently, lost in the woods for overnight and crawled his way to safety. So more reason to have faith that there's something looking out for you, right?
Goodness. But
Thank you, Elise.
making a full recovery, didn't even need surgery. So
Good, excellent.
he's doing great. He's
Very
on the
good.
mend. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry.
All right, our next item on the agenda is our student board representative updates, which is Indy. Indy? You have any tidbits for us this evening? I know you're thinking about a kind of a summary of what maybe at our next board meeting, our next business meeting, you might give a at our study session. Okay, so in 2 weeks, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Anything in the interim?
Sorry.
Do you have anything in the interim? Do you have anything tonight?
Honestly, not much. The school year is really busy right now, as you guys know. Today was jorts day at the high school, so I wore my jorts. Yeah, you guys all should be wearing jorts.
First the mullet and now George. Why we leave that behind, right? I don't know.
I don't think I have any other updates that I can think of.
Indy, you've been running the Instagram page for Selah Decisions, and I just want to commend you for that. It's so sweet, and people this is for high school seniors that are graduating, saying where they're heading off to, including a farrier who's going to go off into horseshoeing college, which is just an awesome thing. Indy is the curator of that and has just created an atmosphere that's been so encouraging. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Let's make up her own. Yeah. Thank you so much. All right. I believe we've had all of our comments from the public, but we're kind of now to, if you didn't want to speak on that time of memorial presentation, if there's anyone that has anything additional that they'd like to add as a public comment, and I don't think we have anybody online that's going to comment. Okay. And I've already read that statement, so we'll move on now to the meeting minutes. Jeez, God, man. Oh, we're going here, aren't we? So I know, Sarah, I know, I'm trying. All right, yeah, order pizza. Public, let's see, the approval of the meeting minutes. I'm assuming everyone, this is from the April 25th, 2024 and the May 9th meeting minutes. I move that we approve the meeting minutes as written. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, excellent. We'll move on to the consent agenda. The Human Resources Action Sheet. I hope you've had a chance to look at. There's nothing necessarily too extraordinary on it, if
No,
I remember
no.
correctly.
Normal resignations and retirement still coming in slowly.
Right, right. That'll help us with budgeting, obviously. Speaking of budgeting, our next item on the consent agenda is payroll goods and services. And Chris, do you have anything on that?
In the interest of time, I think tonight I'm going to pass on those.
Okay. I hope everyone's had a chance to look that over. The next one on the agenda is the out-of-state and overnight travel requests. There are 3 of these for this week. One is for the Pro Action Dance Camp at Lake Oswego. The other is for the TSA conference in Orlando. And the third one is for the FCCLA Nationals. Is that you? No, okay. FCCLA at Nationals in Seattle. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the overnight travel?
I have a quick question, just general policy question. I think it was the TSA group. There's a female student without a female chaperone. How do we get around not having a female chaperone?
Parental approval, and then when you go to these events, there are chaperones that are part of the organization that help support in those areas.
Figured it just caught my eye. So I
Yeah.
wanted to double check.
The next item on the consent agenda is usually an exciting one, but I've looked it over and I don't think I'm gonna get there at 7 AM this time. The no buses for sale, no tractors for sale. This is the surplus property declaration. That's an annual declaration that we make on basically a school district yard sale. It's first a chance, I think, is it the district that gets first crack at it, teachers in the district, or is it
Yeah,
other
so,
districts?
so how it works, the last week of June, on Monday of the last week of June, we have a teacher walkthrough period where teachers can come through and see if there's anything in the sale that they can utilize in their classrooms. Though that happens that Monday. If they're interested in any items for personal use, they have to wait till the public sale. On Tuesday, we have private schools come in by appointment. They get to go through and have first, and public schools too. If there's any public schools interested, they can go through on Tuesday. And then we have the public sale on Wednesday, the last week of June.
Gotcha. So if the three-phase table saw makes it to the public sale,
Correct.
it's up for grabs.
Yep.
All right, excellent. Right, exactly.
Most oftentimes things are junk by the
Yes.
time they get there.
Yeah.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah, all right. The next item on the agenda is a happy item. There's two donations that have come to the Yakima School District. One is a donation to the TSA travel, which will help offset some of the cost from Lisa Redfelt and the Viking crew for $2,400 helping to fund that travel request. And the second is from the for the FCCLA. That comes from Tiffany Minton, the legendary owner of Coffee at Tiffany's. She's donated $1,000 towards that. And I know we have career and technical education on the agenda, but it's just terrific to see community members getting excited about what's happening with TSA and with FCCLA and being supportive of that. All right, does anybody have any comments or questions about any of those?
Clarify that those are being donated to Selah.
What did I say? Yakima School District? Man, that's bad. End of the year teacher move there.
They need it more than we do.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. All right, so all those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify with an eye. All opposed? All right, the consent agenda passes. Now we're on to the administration portion of this. And we have Christy Irian here with us to talk about state and federal programs. This is an annual report that we get. It is not going to cover dual language. We heard from her earlier about that. Instead, we are going to be challenged with acronyms, I believe. Yes, all right, excellent.
I think so.
That's starting already. There it is.
Yeah, right there. There you go. So the state and federal programs that I oversee are listed there, and we'll just quickly go through some. And then for sake of time, we'll probably go a little bit quicker. A lot of the slides are the same, and a lot of the funding, what we funded this year is the same as last year, but I'll point out what's different. And then I invited our PAC members for migrant that will be presenting as well towards the end. They've done a lot of work this year and I'm really proud of them. So I wanted them to be here to present to you as well. So first off, a lot of the revenue that's generated for state and federal programs is funded by student enrollment that generates those funds. So poverty data and we look at for LAP and title. Then to go further, we look at academic need to serve under our LAP title or our LAP dollars. Our title dollars are school-wide, where our poverty rate is high enough to where all buildings are school-wide funded. And so we do a lot of staffing out of there that we'll get to. And then LAP, we go academic need, and we focus mainly on small group instruction. Then our home language survey is what we use to qualify for Title III and TBIP. So that's the transitional bilingual instructional programs. And so our home language survey, we look at to see which students have a language other than English, either at home or as their foundation in their home. And then for migrant, we go through an identification and recruitment process that goes, looks at a certificate of eligibility to enroll students into that program. So our poverty rate right now in Selah, you can see has changed drastically. And for LAP, we go off of a 3-year data point and or a 3-year average. And our currently we're CEP eligible. That means schools that are over that 40% threshold are required to be involved in CEP versus low and reduced or free and reduced lunch. And so this means this is the program where we're allowed to provide free lunch to everyone who attends. But we also fill out a family income survey to verify the poverty data from the Census Bureau to make sure that we are not above what they have recorded as their estimation. And so we do that family income survey to collect more data and to see if we've met those requirements for the state and federal requirements. So Title I, Part A, a lot of things that we fund are for classified and certified staffing. We have to do a parent and family engagement component. We also have done funded some of our PD for our equity work out of there. And we have a set asides that are required for McKinney-Vento, so students experiencing homelessness, and then private schools. Anyone in our attendance district attending a private school, since we're Title I schools here, we have to provide them funds to serve their students that live in our attendance area. So that's a set aside that we I allocate and work with private schools to spend. So Title I, Part A is, this is just the breakdown that you see all of those categories there and how much is spent in each one. And then that 3.2 for family engagement, those funds are actually allocated to the building generates those, and then we push it out to the buildings. It can only be used at those buildings. And so what you see on the next slide is that 3.2 broke up by building. This is a carryover item that can only be carried over and used at that same building. So that's why some buildings are bigger. They may not have used it for a couple years or the previous year and their dollars are carried over, but it has to be spent by that building. So we try and use them every year, but we do have some carryover, which makes some pots a little bigger. Our LAP, Learning Assistant Program, which I said was dedicated mostly to small group instruction. We have go times is what they call them for math and ELA at the two foundational buildings. Our intermediate building calls them Walk to Read and Walk to Math. They also have a Caminar Leer, which is the Spanish version for dual and Spanish interventions as well, that Walk to Read. Middle school does this through humanities. They allocate it's almost all hands on deck. So paras, our special education teachers, our interventionists, our LAP interventionists, multilingual interventionists, they all go to grade levels and are allowed a certain time, and they just it provides an environment to have more adults and lowers that student to adult ratio so that we get some small group instruction during those times. High school, we focus LAP allocation to a lot of the credit retrieval efforts at the high school. So you'll see the numbers there and how they made impact in trimester 1 and 2. And then of course, they'll continue that work for the end of the year, and their summer credit retrieval efforts as well are paid out of LAP.
So the boot camp is, when do those happen during the school year?
They happen at the mark of the trimester. So right after the trimester, they run a boot camp where everyone who's credit deficient can really, those are about that course and to try and improve that grade in that course. So taking that incomplete and improving that before it gets to their
Is it
transcript.
before or after school? I'm trying to remember how
After
it's
school.
structured. After school programs.
yeah.
And then at the end of the school year, this year, there's going to be some of that, or is it?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to run a trimester 3 boot camp, but what they do then is they do it more of the summer school retrieval. And so we run the 3-week summer retrieval or credit retrieval that LAP will also pay for, but they're not doing that after school for Tri 3.
Right. Thank you.
So all of this is the same as last year, except for the top bullet last year was math PD. This year it was priority standards PD. So a lot of our teachers got extra hours to make sure that each grade level was teaching and planning around priority standards. And then our Title III and TBIP is all the same funding as last year. We haven't had any increase really in those pots of money. And so these things that you see here are really kind of required to make sure that we are providing services for our multilingual learners. And then, of course, we pay for our multilingual learner interventionist. There's one at each building to help do that support push in. We do have multilingual learners that are not in dual, and so our interventionists push in and support those students that are not in dual program. And then we'll move on to migrant. This year we had Norma Barrera, who was hired as our migrant student advocate. She is a district employee, but housed at the high school. She's done a lot of effort in that credit retrieval avenue. And then of course we have Edgardo De La Torre, who is our family services coordinator. He's our everything migrant. So he does recruitment, he does some of that MSA work, K-8. And so, so he does it all, even translate or interprets.
Is he being modest right now as he
Yes,
translates?
He will,
Okay,
he will.
All right,
Yeah,
well,
He will. So our migrant program, one of the requirements is to have a PAC, a parent advisory committee. And so we have some members and officers here tonight. But one of the some of the annual tasks that we have to go over bylaws and budget. We have to do a needs assessment to evaluate the current needs of our families who are mobile and the student needs of students who are in families that are mobile. Sometimes our students are moving on their own if they're in the upper grade levels and doing work over summer, which qualifies them as well. Some of the services that we had this year, we provided school supplies, parent and family engagement activities. We've done hidden in plain sight and QPR for our migrant families. We have done, we got a extra, which I think is on the next slide, grant for mental health that we qualified for and got extra funding for. And we've provided a lot of leadership opportunities for our students. They see some pictures here of some of those things. We've visited CWU and YVC, and we even took a group to Evergreen Beauty College or school. What is it? Yeah, training. I don't know. Can't even remember what it's called now. But we took a group there. That was part of Norma's work to help them with their passion of beautifying people. Then we did strengthening families again. We had the same, we had 8 graduating students. And this is a class that just helps them with communication between a teenager and their parents, some decision-making skills, just building that confidence. We did apply and get an extra 20,000 above our migrant funds to really focus on mental health. So everything we did this year in our parent events was all around mental health, whether it was resource fairs or social emotional learning type of activities or clubs, and then providing mental health services for tier 3 students that need that extra support. And so to just testify to some of those things, we have some people that I would love to have present, and you guys can come up to the podium whenever you see your name. Elvira Figueroa is our migrant PAC president, and she is going to talk, and then we'll have Edgardo interpret. So they'll walk up together.
Welcome, Elvira. We're glad that you're here this evening.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Yo soy la presidenta del PAC
I am the PAC's president.
y me pusieron aquí unas preguntas que qué es lo que significa para mí ser la presidenta del PAC.
And here I have a couple questions that I'm going to answer. One of them is, what does it mean to me to be the PAC president?
Tengo 32 años viviendo aquí en Selah.
I have 32 years living here in Selah.
Desgraciadamente me enfoqué tanto en el trabajo del campo que no tuve la oportunidad de aprender el inglés porque en el campo pues puro español.
Unfortunately, I did focus on my work, which was agriculture work, and I didn't take the time to focus on learning English.
Entonces, soy madre de 5 hijos y ellos son criados aquí y he visto el avance, el progreso que es el programa migrante.
I am a parent of 5 children, and all of them have been raised here in Selah, and I have seen the progress that they have, the progress that has been made with the migrant program.
Y quiero ser la voz para para mi gente, que ya hay oportunidades de progreso, de apoyo para nuestros hijos.
And I want to be the voice for my people, and I want to let them know that there is more support for our children.
Porque por desgracia, mi comunidad a veces no está informada de las ayudas para nuestros hijos para poder salir adelante.
Unfortunately, my community sometimes is not informed about all the resources and supports available to children to be able to succeed.
Esto responde la segunda pregunta, que cómo me involucro. Me involucro en ver las necesidades de mi comunidad.
And then the second question I'm going to ask is, how do I get involved? So I get involved by looking at the needs of my community.
En el PAC hacemos juntas y decimos, yo he visto personalmente que necesitamos la ayuda mental, mucha información sobre ayuda mental para nuestros jóvenes.
So in the PAC meetings, we get together and we share feedback on what we have seen in the community. And one of the things that we have said is that we see a lot of need for mental health.
Porque por desgracia ha habido mucho, el número ha crecido en cuestión de suicidios.
Because there has been a big or a growth in the suicide rate.
Es muy difícil para nuestros hijos el cambio de vida.
It's a big challenge for children, just the change in their lives.
Muy difícil para encajar en la comunidad anglosajona.
A change in their lives and trying to engage in the community and white community.
Y nosotros como padres somos por cultura, no creemos en la enfermedad mental.
And us as parents, because culturally, we don't believe in mental health.
Entonces es tiempo de dar a saber a mis padres, a mi comunidad, de que eso existe y es real.
And that's why it's time for me as a parent to let other parents know that that is something real and it happens.
Es por eso que abogué para que nos trajeran la información de salud mental, sobre de drogas, sobre de adicciones, sobre de bullying, sobre discriminación, porque desgraciadamente todavía lo vivimos nosotros aquí.
And that's why as an advocate, I advocated to bring more awareness of mental health and other topics such as discrimination and drug abuse. Because unfortunately, that's something that we are still living and it's still happening.
Tengo 3 hijos graduados de universidad y fue muy difícil encontrar las ayudas económicas, las becas. No hubo quien nos guiara con la primera para llenar el FAFSA. Entonces también lo traje a la mesa, que tenemos que educar a nuestros padres que hay ayudas como el FAFSA, las becas, pero no sabemos dónde dirigirnos.
As a parent, my 3 children, they are now graduated from college, and back in the day, I didn't have the support on how to fill out like the FAFSA, and now I have brought that as an awareness that we need more support to get to help others to fill out the FAFSA.
El cuarto está en el colegio de centro y ya pues ya estamos más informados y ya se le guió mejor.
So my 4th child, he's at Central Washington University and he received better support and he knows better what he's supposed to be doing.
El quinto está en el grado 10, entonces dentro de 2 años se va a colegio.
My 5th child is in 10th grade and in 2 years he's gonna go to college.
No tiene pretexto porque ya saben, ya tenemos las armas para guiarlo y él también tiene las armas y la información para sacar sus becas.
And there is no excuse now. He has all the tools and the support so he can get scholarships and go to college.
Quiero decirle a mi comunidad hispana que sí se puede. Es duro, es difícil, he llorado mucho, he trabajado mucho, pero sí se puede ver a nuestros hijos con una buena preparación y un buen futuro.
I want to tell my community that it's possible, you can do it.
with the support and getting ready with all of that, it's possible to see your children having a good future.
Y en lo que yo pueda informar a mi comunidad, a mi comadre, a mi vecina, a mi amiga, yo lo hago.
And with anything that what I could do is to notify, inform, and provide awareness to any friend, neighbor, anyone in your community.
Y también para cerrar, también yo dije que no era tarde, saqué mi GD, fui a sacar mi CDL y ahora cambié de trabajo, me salí del campo, ahora manejo el bus escolar.
Just to end, I'm not longer working in the field, so I decided to get my GED, I got my CDL, and I'm working as a bus driver.
Sí se puede. Gracias.
Thank you, Elvira.
And then next we have a PAC member, Graciela Berrueta, and you want to go up, Maudie? You can go up with your mom. And then Maudie is at the high school and she's been one of our PAC leaders and she even serves on the PAC to help make decisions as well.
Well, hello, good afternoon. My name is Graciela Berrueta, and I am a PAC officer on the migrant program. And the question I have was, how was the support of the migrant program made you feel as a parent? The support from the migrant program has made me feel safe and confident about all the assistance they provide to our migrant community, especially to the families that upon moving here, find themselves in need of food or housing. Thanks God, when I first moved to this country, I didn't have that type of worry. But now, thanks to the existence of this program, I realize all the support that is provided and that is available to our Hispanic community. As a parent, I feel confident because I know that if any given time my daughters need help with anything related to school or with their health, then the migrant program will be more than willing to help us. Just in the same way as I am willing to help as an officer of the migrant program, of the PAC, I'm sorry. And the second question that I have, what are you most proud of? What I am most proud of is what my daughters have achieved to this date, along with the program. One of them went to compete with the FCCLA club from high school to Denver in the state of Colorado. She won silver, but for me, was worth gold. We were able to achieve all this with the help of the migrant program. And I am very proud and very grateful for all the effort she puts in everything she does. Same as I feel for Christy and Edgardo and all the PAC members and all the Selah School District for being there when we need them. Thank you. Thank you so much. Excuse my English, but I'm nervous.
You
but
did
I was thinking
excellent.
to do it in Spanish, but I want to try my English in front of all of you. And thank you so much.
We're
And
proud of you.
here's my
Yeah, I
daughter.
know. And then next we have Maria Jimenez. And she is a PAC parent who has some similar success stories with her boys. So I'll have her talk as well.
Maybe, can I?
Yeah, of
do this
course.
a bit? The upside down way for. Okay.
You can just set it, prop it up in front of the, yeah, right there. Yeah. Perfect.
Hey,
Good evening. My name is Maria Jimenez. I am a parent of the mother of 4 boys that are doing just great. They're thriving. They've always been part of the migrant program. I am a seasonal farm worker, apples, cherries, thinning, asparagus back in the day. Even I did the Dare to Dream Academy in Eastern Washington University, Sunnyside High School. Well, I have a question here. How has the migrant support made you feel as a parent? Geez, where do I start with that? I just moved here to Selah 2 years ago. We're on our 2nd anniversary. It was kind of intimidating starting all over. We moved here to be closer to YVC for my son Oscar, bottom left, I believe. Yeah. Anyway, the Selah graduate. So I have 2 boys in the Selah have had, well, the one that graduated last year, and then Roberto, my young one. He's in 11th grade. He will be headed to the U.S. Naval Academy Summer Seminar, which I shared with Edgardo and Christy. And geez, the program has helped us tremendously, from acquiring services. Even when my son Oscar, who already graduated, we needed to be closer to YVC, as I said, but we needed help with the books, to get started and so forth. And, thanks to the program, that helped a lot and relieved a lot of the anxiety and, stress of like, oh, geez, where do I start all over with my boys and stuff? But yeah, and then I have my older way up at the top. He's also gonna be finishing Western State University for chiropractic, 5 years, WSU. And then I have my son, David Jimenez, that graduated in 2018 from Sunnyside High School and went on to Stanford for 1 year. He's a Gates Scholar. I'm a mother of a Bill Gates Millennium Scholar kiddo. Very proud of that. And then he went on to the U.S. Naval Academy because he is determined to be an astronaut one day. He's got 6 years of education already. And now he's at the flight school, Pensacola, Florida. All my 4 boys have been to apple orchards, cherry orchards, thinning apple, pruning grape, all that stuff. But I'm proud of that, and so back to this. Okay, what are you most proud of? Geez, that they are thriving in their education, for their careers one day, where they could, be part of community and living their dream. Yeah. And that's what I have. Thank you.
We were gonna have Jesu as a student, but she couldn't make it tonight. So Maudie is gonna just say one quick thing that migrant program has helped you with in high school level.
Yep.
Okay.
Hi, so my name is Maury Falcon. I'm a sophomore at Selah High School, and I'm also a migrant student leader. So my 2 questions were, what experiences have you had as a migrant student leader, and what are your future goals? So to start off, I've been in the program for about 3 years now, since the 8th grade. Math, yes. So it's been very educational. I've learned a lot more about our district and my culture and, my people more than I thought I would. I've been able to help plan, the events that we have, like our back to school night for, our Latino Hispanic community. Our Christmas, posadas, which is another cultural event that is very important to us, and our Dia del Niño event too, which is the Day of the Kid, to celebrate. Important events that we celebrate. So I've had the opportunity to help organize and, lead those. I have also had the opportunity to attend Dare to Dream. I went to the University of Washington last year and I spent a week there, and I got to earn a half credit just being there and learning about the campus. And a lot of this program has really helped me with learning about what I want to do with my future. My future goals are to go to medical school and become a pediatrician. So I have a lot of school ahead of me. And for, that kind of schooling, you have to know where you want to go. And I have to tell you, when I came in here, I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know, after I get out of high school, where do I go? How do I achieve my goals? And thanks to this program, thanks to Edgardo and everyone that leads this program, I am setting my sights on going to the University of Washington and getting, my bachelor's there, getting my pre-med degrees and all that, and then attending, their medical school there, or Pacific Northwest here in Yakima. And thanks to, Dare to Dream, thanks to the Rising Together conferences that I've been able to attend, and just all these opportunities that I've had through this program has really helped me figure out what I want to do with my future. And I'm just very thankful for that. Thank you.
Christy,
So-
before you close, I just want to say thank you to everyone who spoke this evening. And the theme of pride was so clear as one of the questions, obviously, but you could just feel how proud you are of your children. I want to point out, I can speak for your children. They are very proud of you as well. I just sense that. I see it here in the room. So thank you very much for being here. Excellent work.
I've got one quick question for Graciela. Are you currently taking English, or if not, where did you learn English? Okay. Okay. Great, thank you.
So I know it was a little bit longer tonight, but I wanted you to hear their stories. So thank you for that tonight, for that opportunity. So I'll just leave it there for questions. And if anything wasn't answered throughout tonight on the other slides, just you can reach out to me, and I'd be willing to meet with you later on as well.
It was longer, Christy, but it was worthwhile.
Okay. Oh, I was like,
Yeah.
what's coming next?
No,
Thank
no,
you,
that was
Jamie.
definitely worthwhile. Thank you very much.
Incredibly inspiring, and we're proud of your students as well, definitely in the Selah School District. Thank you, Christy, and thank you again for being here this evening to tell your stories. Our next item on the agenda is the CTE and Choice Programs Annual Report. Again, this is a report that we hear every year. I think we've bumped it a couple of times, or we've missed our chance to hear from Jeff, if I remember correctly. At least once, right? So we're excited to hear about the progress and the work that's being done in CTE in the Selah schools. And I'll let Jeff take it away.
So Kevin promised me I had an hour and a half. Is that right? Obviously not really.
You may, we don't.
Yeah. Well, I have basketball practice happening right now.
All right,
So, no, thanks for having me. I was supposed to present last month and I got bronchitis. So, here I am really close to a microphone. So that's always a nice thing. My goal today is to give you a kind of a 40,000 foot view of the really innovative programs that we have. Our programs in Selah are true lighthouse programs across the valley. We are leaders in these areas. Pathways, dual credit college in the high school, and our CTE programs are and I'm not patting myself on the back, I'm patting our teachers on the back and our students who are doing a phenomenal job. I just get the pleasure of presenting about their work. So, you know, our mission in CTE and really in our Future Ready is all about preparing students for their personalized future. It's not a future that we're determining for them. It is based on their needs. And we have some sort of bumpers, if you will, to kind of align things as they go. And I want to talk about some of those things. So one of the first things we do is we ask this question: what would education look like if we wanted to best prepare every single one of our students for their future? Not a future that we say, this is what you have to do, not a future that worked for me, not a future that may work for their parents, not a future that may work for business, but let's look at what they're interested in and let's ask lots of different questions and have lots of different inputs. One of the things I like to say, and you'll hear me say this, is like the programs that we offer are not your grandpa's wood shop. So when I was in school and when you were in school and when our parents were in school, it was college or career. And that's just not the case any longer. It's career. Everybody's going to have a career, whether or not that stops off in college or not. And so when we think about like a wood shop, for example, we're doing things in there, which by the way, actually our wood shop class is a Central Washington University class, 4 credits, no big deal. But we're doing things in there that we wouldn't have even dreamed of doing in wood shop when I was in school. We were building toys. They're doing things in there that are aligned to industry standards. They're doing things in there that are aligned to what business is asking us to do. They're doing things in there that are meeting industry-wide engineering standards, right? So it's not just like, hey, I'm going to whittle a baseball bat, or I'm going to make a little peg game where I jump the little pegs. We're not doing that. They're doing things that are manufacturing driven and are driven to industry-wide standards. So it's, you hear the word rigor like thrown around in things. These are often more rigorous, and it's sort of like a Jedi mind trick. We're tricking students almost that, don't tell anyone. We're like doing the math in woodshop at a more rigorous level often than what they're doing in like a traditional geometry class, right? And it's you can see it. You can see the student engagement when you're in there with the students. Just as an aside, not your grandpa's woodshop. So what we do is we combine the rigorous learning opportunities with the outcomes that are driven by business and industry and post-secondary partnerships. So how do we do that? We listen to all these people. So part of what I'm required to do as a CTE director is I'm required to meet with business and industry. I'm required to meet with colleges and universities, technical schools. I'm required to take labor market data with every single class we're offered. I'm required to listen to labor experts and to determine what classes and courses to offer. I'm required to do all of that. Why isn't all education like that? Like, what if we actually listened to our business and industry experts? What if we listened to college and university partners on a yearly basis, or hopefully more often, to inform us what we're doing in all of our classes, in our algebra classes, in our geometry classes, in our English classes? We could, and we have a perfect method to do so. And we in CTE we call it the GAC, General Advisory Council, and we meet, gosh, at least once a trimester. But we meet regionally as CTE directors with our workforce. We meet with them every month. So I want to do a quick highlight, something that we've changed this year that you haven't seen. This is hot off the press. I've only shared this with a few people, but we have a program called Worksite Learning. And in this program, students get one period off, but they're required to have a job or an internship where they're actually applying the skills that are based on their pathway. And in this program, you'll see we have it's a 2-minute video. So that hour and a half was a joke. but you'll see some business partners and you'll see some student voice, and they'll tell you about their experience. So hopefully we have volume. It's real loud. So that program's overseen by Scott Roark. Many of you probably know him. He's phenomenal at his job. He's constantly, as an example, we're starting a new class next year. It's home healthcare aide. It's a incredibly in-demand job. And it's a position that the Department of Health and our local industry said, hey, we need employees. We need students who are able to do this. And so we started this program. Starting next year, it's taught in our health science pathway. Students can get this certification and immediately have a job. Scott has already found every single one of these kids a position. And I gave him a name of another company on Tuesday, and by Wednesday, he'd already reached out and met with that company to determine if they had a placement for some of our other interns. So, it's something that we're very, very proud of, and we're leading the way in this regard. We have more worksite learning students than anybody in the Valley. And in fact, I shared that video with 3 of my kind of CTE director colleagues, and they came back with a list of questions. How are you doing this? What are you doing? How did you reach out to these businesses? And honestly, some of it's Scott, right? I mean, you guys probably know of him or know him personally. But Howard's Drugs, our students in our health science pathway are getting certified to be pharmacy assistants. Howard's Drugs they need that. It's a very high in demand position. And what's going to happen is those students are often going off to be pharmacists later. They want to go to 4-year school. So what they're doing is while they're in school, they're going to work as pharmacy assistants. So we've provided them with a job and a way to get income while they're in their 4-year school. And then later on, they'll have all of that experience as a pharmacy assistant as they become a pharmacist. So just incredible opportunities for students.
Yeah, if you mind if I ask a question in the middle?
I would love it.
So a student goes to high school, and Fulton helped us make a decision with my daughter on college and classroom, right start. When a student comes to the high school, and I know that we're going to start CTE a little bit more robust in the middle school, but how does that, student make that decision, in regards to, do I want Running Start? Do I want college and classroom, CTE? Does CTE compete with college and classroom? Does it compete with, how does a kid 14, 15 years old kind of get in and make a decision for him or herself in that spot?
Jamie, it's a great question. Can I table it until I'm going to show you, because to me, that's the most important question. When we first started pathways work, like right there, 2019 is really when we started talking about it. We used to have a university bound pathway. And the university bound pathway was where we stuck all of our college and the high school classes. But what we started seeing was it was limiting options for students. And the other piece was we were still seeing it through the lens of college or career, instead of everybody's going to have a career and these classes will all prepare them for whatever's next. So what we started to do is to really think about, I'm going to skip ahead. Is that okay? Multiple on-ramps and off-ramps. So if you look at these nice tree images behind you, so every career, or every career pathway, as we call them, has multiple on-ramps and off-ramps, both for professional careers, for technical careers, and some that are just entry level. So to use the example of a pharmacy assistant, that's an entry level, actually it's more like technical level, but it's you have some technical skills, you have some certifications that will allow you to get a position. But it also has, it continues on. You have another on-ramp to continue on with your education to be like a pharmacist, which would be considered like a professional career. So by getting that information, getting that knowledge while they're with us in school, they're able to not only start through that pathway, but also continue. And then I'm going to talk more about like the college and high school credits and all that too. I'm going to just go over this briefly. So here's our growth over time. You guys have heard this before, but we are still the largest FTE, the CTE program in our valley. And that's, obviously divided by the number of students in our schools. But we are the largest. And you can see some of our big jumps, and I have arrows there pointing to, that's when we implemented pathways. That's when we started implementing things at the middle school. And then Christy and I partner really well with dual language and some of our things we do there. I'm not gonna have time to get into that one today. Sorry. We could do this for a few hours. The other thing that's nice about CTE is that over time we've been able to get an incredible amount of grant funding. So this year we're actually, that's a little bit low. We're over $600,000 of grant money brought into the district this year, and that's intended to grow our programs, help students with, for example, we just our Mecha Club is on a college visit right now, or today. They're probably almost back now, but we were able to fund that so that students could go get some college experience. They went to Oregon and Oregon State. So we're able to do things like that for students that are a little bit outside the box without it hitting our budgets, right? So we're able to do that. CTE, we are very fortunate that it's funded at a higher rate from the federal government, but it's also highly supported with companies like Boeing. So I know Boeing doesn't have a great name right in the news right now, but we've been fortunate to get a Boeing grant through Core Plus each year that I've been here. This year we got 19,000, but it averages about 55,000 a year to help students get into kind of the metalworking type of careers and to the college level as well. Well, yeah. So here are our pathways. I'm not going to go over this in great detail, but our newest one, our pathways are driven by student interest and business and industry support. So art and design is our newest pathway. We're seeing a huge spike in art and design. So it's kind of combining the digital art as well as physical art with the marketing side of things. So as an example, you guys ever heard of Funko Pops? These things that kids really like. To me, they're just like a plastic toy. But in the art and design pathway, they just finished, the computer science students 3D printed a Funko. The art students designed it in their own likeness, and then the digital media took pictures of it, and the marketing students created the box for it. So a multi-pathway, and it's a massive skill. Actually, my neighbor works for Funko, and she's like, hey, we might want to hire some of those or have them do like a remote internship because it's a West Side company. But just real life, tangible skills that students are getting through these pathways. I already kind of highlighted health science a little bit. So let's talk post-secondary credit. So part of what I do as a director of future learning is, think about what's next for students. Think about whether that's university, whether that's 2-year school, trade school, military, straight into the workforce. My role is to look at all of that. And one goal that I've always had, and you guys have heard me say this before, is getting more college and high school classes. We currently offer, this is hot off the press, we've just been approved for a bunch of these classes. So we have 202 college credits available at Selah High School. We were just awarded, you can see there at the bottom, or maybe you can't. We have ASL 1, ASL 2, Intro to Digital Media, Grey's Anatomy, which is it's an anatomy class, as well as child development, are all now approved through Central for Central Washington University credit. So we have 101 credits through Central Washington University. This year, 1,660 credits have been earned by students in Selah. That's the most in our region, including Ike and Davis, which are much larger populations. The thing that we've found in talking with college and the high school, 57% of our college and the high school classes are CTE. So it's not college or career, you're doing them along that same pathway. So as an example, our education pathway, every single class in the education pathway is a college credit. So you exit that program with something like 28 different college credits just in the education field. Oh, and by the way, you can get a direct transfer AA degree while on our site. So kids don't need to choose Running Start at all. They can do it all here, get the high school experience, as well as getting that AA degree for free.
Jeff, I got a question there.
Yeah.
How much heavier of a lift would it be for an AS?
I would need a willing partner. So the direct transfer AA it's through YVC. So their credits, how you have to do it is you have to have a certain number of credits. You have 30 of your credits have to be through them. So that's one kind of nuance piece with that. We would need more YVC credits in the sciences. So we have like Grey's Anatomy is a 4-credit central class, but it's also well, technically it's a 6-credit YVC class. So we can count that in multiple places. But it's really hard to get a science, chemistry college in the high school because of the lab components. So Central doesn't like partnering with that. We've looked at partnering with Heritage, might be a little bit easier, but then you get into the transfer and how the credits transfer and all that. What I'm really trying to do is to get Central to offer us their AA degree. Because then what we could do is we could have a kid. So this direct transfer, you need to take 1 or maybe 2, depending on what pathway you are, classes that are online. But through Central, we wouldn't need to do any of that because we have 110 credits with them already. Because of the way the law works with the 30 credits with the AA degree. Good question. I mean, I want to. Yeah.
I feel like you're calling me out from a YVC perspective right now. I will say this is being pushed. There you go. The administration at YVC would like to do this. I think there's a lot of pushback from faculty, to be blunt about it.
Yep.
I'm not sure.
The other thing we do is we work on one of the things that I sort of laugh about is when we hear the comments about rigor. Our CTE classes are required to use the same exact standards as any other class. Like we have to submit like our syllabi, basically it's called a framework. We have to submit it to the state and they have to approve them. So we have to prove that we're actually using those same standards. It's not less than, it's not easier. It's just like a Jedi mind trick. It seems easier because it's way more engaging, right? It's things kids might be interested in the future. But another reason I sort of laugh is kids are getting industry adult level credentials while in high school. So if our industry and our business partners are saying, hey, you know, this is what it takes to be, you know, to get a drafting certificate, and our kids are getting that, what more rigorous activities do you need, right? And so this year, up to this point, it's actually +10 because we have a bunch of students who just got their FAA drone certification this week. But I mean, that's a lot of industry credentials earned by students in Selah. So I'm super proud of that. And that's been that plus dual credit have been a big push of mine. And our staff have responded. They've continued to push and to add and to get the extra training required to be certified by those colleges and certified as a credential earning class. I'm not going to click on this. If we had time, I was going to click on the website. I think if you have the link to this, if not, I can send it to you. But there's I have a future ready website where you can click through and you can look at the pathways, what classes we offer. And it actually links directly to our course catalog. So you can see what those courses are if you're interested. Pretty proud of that. Any questions, kind of CTE, dual credit, before I talk a little bit about choice? Okay. So as we're thinking about the future needs of all students, we have some updates in our choice programs and some things we've learned along the way. So as you might recall, we used to have a program called Big Picture Learning. It was a program that was based around essentially project-based learning for students, for a small group of students. And we moved that program to the high school, and we've adapted it and kind of made it our own. And what we've found in interviewing our students and interviewing the teachers in that program is that, you know what? Our high school is kind of already a BPL. We have project-based learning all throughout. And students were saying, hey, why would I go to a full day program when I can get pockets of my interest level throughout the day in high school? So what we're doing is we're modifying that program. We're going to have a humanities block. So instead of, it used to be we had a humanities block and a STEM block. And in that STEM block, what they did is they did their engineering, they did their science, they did their math. But that's also where we're very strong in CTE, right? We're very strong in all of those areas. And students were saying, hey, I'd rather go to this Grey's Anatomy class, or I'd rather go to this animal sciences biology class and learn through there. But what we don't have is we don't have alternative options for English or history. So we said, okay, well, we'll continue that humanities portion. We'll just embed it into the school day. So now it'll be a class period or 2 class periods at the high school, but it won't be a separate, its own program. It'll just be built into the school day so that we have some different options for students who need a more integrated approach to ELA and history. The other thing we're doing is we've brought back, or excuse me, not brought back, but we've brought on a new online partner. So we've previously been partnered with Pearson. Pearson, if I can be blunt, was a very expensive partner. We were required to have our own teacher on staff who ran some of the Washington State requirements for a program like this called ALE. I won't bore you with the details. Our new partner is called Greenways Academy. And it's a much, I would say, a much better partner for us. We are not required to have our own teacher attached to it. They have a teacher who does all the Washington State requirements through their program. One of the beauties of this program is it's talk about this publicly, right? It's a 50-50 split of FTE. So it is not, Pearson was much higher than that. Plus we had to have a staff member attached to Pearson. So it's a much more fiscally sound method to getting online education. The other thing is that Greenways Academy partners with multiple different online organizations. And so, they partner with countless different organizations. So Pearson was one online provider. Greenways has multiple that they partner with so that students can get what they need based on a multitude of methods.
It really allows us to individualize the needs of the student and then put an academic plan together for them that fits to them, whatever that they need, whatever is going on in their life, whatever time it is. It is so what we believe, and this is what we anticipate happening. It becomes very flexible to meet the individual needs of students. And we really were struggling with programs that were so rigid and so cost prohibitive and couldn't be adjusted on when we need to. And that's when the kid needs it. We need to be able to provide the program right now. And that was not happening. This also allows us to expand opportunities for online or virtual schools that parents may want for their children in ways that we weren't able to do so in the past. So this is a much bigger menu of options that fit the needs of individual students or individual parents. So we're very hopeful that we have a one place location to have all kinds of different, Jeff and his team call them choice programs. You may hear them as alternative education programs or ALE programs. This is really what that's about. We like to term it as choice programs because there is choice involved in taking advantage of these programs.
Jeff, what are our numbers in the online, exclusively online program or even partially online?
Yeah, currently, we actually shuttered our 9-12 program. There was a lot of inflexibility with our previous provider. We have 32 currently K-8, and then we have a few that we grandfathered in from the previous system that are still with us. So we have two at the 9-12 level. Most of them will be continuing on with our new system, but we're opening it up now. So students basically can come to us 9-12 and say, hey, I'm interested in going online. It might be a need I have temporarily. It might be a need I'm interested in trying out. We didn't have that this year. In years past, we had 45 to 50 students, K-12. So we're anticipating at least that moving forward. The other piece that we're adding is we've been approved by OSPI to be what's called an open doors provider. Open Doors is a program that is a GED program. We currently partner with ESD on that. This year we sent 38 kids to ESD for Open Doors, which I'm sure Chris could tell you how much FTE that is. But here's the reality is that this provides another choice, another menu of options, as Kevin said, another option for students to meet their future goals, right? So not only are we now an Open Doors provider, so we can provide those services here for our students, but we're also going to be a GED testing site, which we actually just got that word this week. So I've been going around taking pictures of everything. They make you take an obscene amount of pictures of where you're going to test people and the locking cabinets and all of those types of things. But we believe that this gives us a much better menu of options for students as they're thinking about their futures and as they're thinking about what's next. So online partnership, Open Doors, CTE, dual credit, everything's intertwined to find that best fit for students, to help them find what's next and to help them connect their learning to post-secondary outcomes. So super proud about this progress. I think that we're on the right track and leading the way for many in our region to look to us and say, hey, how are you doing this? How can I kind of pick your brain, ask questions, and maybe ride on your coattails a little bit?
I also want to add one thing about Open Doors. That Open Doors has a component that it's really about trying to re-engage students who have dropped out of the system or left the system. Open Doors allows us the opportunity to maybe go find those students, re-engage them, get them back into the system. Obviously, they're probably going to be very credit deficient, and telling them they need 20 credits to graduate is not practical. It's not reality for them at their age, but to give them an option of that, hey, we can support you and prepare you and actually provide you the services and the testing environment to get your GED. And for that specific student under those circumstances, that may be exactly what they need to be able to progress and move forward. Obviously, the GED program is not for all students, but it is nice to have that menu available when those students need those services. We have found that I think our students for the most part, the high percentage of them enjoy going to the public high school and what is offered there, which means the number of students participating in a virtual type of education is probably less and less. Our homeschool population of students who families who choose to homeschool, they have consistently chosen to homeschool. We are going to advertise to them as we have responsibilities to reach out to them every year. We're going to advertise some of these new programs and let them know about the opportunities, specifically at the middle school and high school. That may be a struggle for them in their systems to be able to offer some of those opportunities. So the idea of college and high school options, the idea of CTE based options, the idea of choice programs, that may be something that would entice those homeschool families or some homeschool families to re-engage with the public school so their kids have some of those opportunities.
So I look at, if time allows, I have all these things for you. Do you have any questions for me?
I would encourage you, like I've encouraged you before, is to reach out to Jeff and get the real details of these. And then if you have the time and opportunity, just go see some of these in action. Obviously, you can tell that Jeff's very proud of them, and I know you've heard from teachers and administration, but it's a different look when you're seeing the students engaged in these type of courseworks and the teachers as well involved. It really brings it all together. So if you have those opportunities, you can make some time, whether it's the remainder of this year or the beginning of next year, I would highly encourage you to do that.
Jeff, I know you gave a lot of credit to your teachers, which probably rightfully so, but I also know it takes a ton of energy to do what you do and to kind of make sure it's focused and stuff. And so we really appreciate what you do. CT comes up quite a bit throughout our year of meetings and stuff, and your name's always out there as getting a grant or innovating a new program or what have you. So thank you very much. And kind of crazy between yours and Christie's presentations. I mean, we had students talk about wanting to be astronauts, students wanting to be curators, students, pharmacists and chiropractors and stuff. And so, it does tell you when you get to the student, the level that you guys are getting to and open their eyes to some of these experiences they could have an opportunity to have, that it's out there for them. So thank you both for that.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I'll just add that sometimes when we have reports, I'll ask, or I think I asked at a community forum, who in the district is doing this right? Who do you look for as a model for whatever they're presenting about? And it's obvious that the work that both of you are doing is a model for other schools in our area. So we're excited about all that progress, proud of our district and the work that you're doing for us. So our kids are grateful for sure. Thank you very much. Doubled and then doubled again the amount of funding we've gotten.
Hey,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I can double that.
Right. We don't expect exponents every year. All right. Thank you very much again. Our next item on the agenda is actually a series of items that are annual resolutions that come up as kind of a matter of yearly obligation from the board. The first one is the resolution number 2024-3, which is the WIAA delegation. You can see from the link that's provided, this is a school board resolution about being a membership of the WIAA. Should we vote on these individually? Is that what we need to do, or do we? I think we do them one at a time. Okay, we'll do, if that's all right, approval, yep, all right. The second resolution is the authorization to employ supervisory personnel. And you can see for that one, there's a list of names that are, we resolved that these individuals are able to be supervisory personnel, from Joe Koskar to Frank Reno, Lori Ozanich, Greg Sugden, Stephanie Henry, Christy Arian, Hunter Sissom, Jeff Cochran. And then in addition to that, a number of building level faculty and administration as well. Kevin, do you want to tell us a little bit about why we have to do that one?
These are basically your approval of employing them, providing them contractual agreement authorization for the
supervisor
for the upcoming year, correct?
And then under administration, item E is resolution 2024-5, authorization to employ non-supervisory certificated personnel. And these aren't listed. There's this is kind of everybody else, I guess I would say.
Everybody else that holds a professional certificate in the district, correct?
Correct. So this is the authorization to employ those personnel, supervisory, and non-supervisory personnel. All right, any comments or questions?
I've just got a question on the administrators and principals there. So, because we're not in charge of them, right? As a board, we're only responsible for reviewing you. So I mean, again, going back to the question, why do we authorize those?
The board has a responsibility to approve all contracts. Okay, and each of these has an individual contract with the district. What you're doing is approving those contracts individually, but in a way that it's all done together. And so they're differentiated between supervisory and non-supervisory employees, but each of them does hold a contract with the district individually. You are approving those contracts based on the resolution, which in turn is in a way, the recommendation from me as a superintendent to approve their individual contracts for the following year.
Okay, so I guess if we have questions regarding certain individuals, and I, for example, have had people approach me about some of them, how would I approach that?
How would you approach that with the individual person that is concerns, or with the
no, as far as like not approving their contract or whatever? Is there a time when we negotiate their contract, or their contracts are negotiated? I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around this.
If it's an individual employee, okay, and there's concerns about the performance of that employee, and if it's an administrative employee, it either goes to Chris or I, right? Chris has the classified directors per se, and I have the administrative directors. So if there's concerns with regards to performance issues, I mean, evaluative issues, those come to either the two of us. The issuance of a contract is for administrative staff, just the ability for them to know that they have a contract for the district for the next coming year. Some of those contracts would be in regards of their performance per se, and others would be just in continuation of what they've done in the previous years. So if there's not a concern with performance related issues as evaluators, then we put these people on these lists in order for you to authorize the continuation of their contractual services. But if that's the difference between a contract and the performance of the employee and who's evaluating them. So for example, if the board member had concerns with a certain employee, depending on who would be that supervisor and their performance, they would come to us as the evaluator with some of their concerns.
Okay.
So Derek, I know you haven't been through the whole negotiation process. I know board members don't sit at the table to negotiate, but when we complete a negotiation and we bring it to the board, that's when we give you highlights for each of the contracts. So the administrators are one group, the certificated administrators, and then you have your administrative assistants, and then you have your bus drivers, paras, and custodians. So as those contracts are negotiated and settled, then we typically bring those for final approval to the board. We always bring them to the board.
And those contracts are for the group of people those negotiated contracts are for groups of employees. I think you're talking about is the individual employee, correct?
Correct, yeah. I mean, and the reason why I ask is just because, like I've said in other meetings, I'm representing people, the people who have voted for me. And so if they come to me with issues and I don't know how to handle them, that's why I'm asking this question. And then it appears to me that I am betraying their trust when I don't raise issues regarding employees. And so I guess I'm just trying to avoid that, if that makes sense.
Well, you're not just representing people who voted for you though, right? You're representing the entire district as a board member and the students and the families and community.
I feel like I am representing the public
Right.
who voted, yes. And so that doesn't mean that, in my opinion, I would vote in block on everything. Because to vote 5-0 as a board on everything indicates that the community is unified, and that's not accurate.
Okay.
This particular case, if it does have a concern about an individual employee, the board does not evaluate or supervise employees. They're not involved in any of the employee related things. If you or community members, parents have concerns about employees, then they need to go directly to the supervisor, depending on what level that is. It could be Chris or I, or it could be principals, or it could be directors.
Okay, let's, as a group then, resolution 2024-3-4 and -5. As agreed upon previously, we'll hold a vote on approval of those resolutions. All those in favor of approving those resolutions signify with an aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, great. The resolutions pass. We're now on to item 9, and the first item in the Associate Superintendent for District Operations Report is a budget update.
Okay, I don't have numbers to bring to you this evening, but what I can say, I just want to give you a very quick overview and reminder about process. So back in November, well, even earlier than that, we started talking about our budget analysis project. But in November, we started with our enrollment projections. And it's always the key point in your budgeting process is projecting enrollment. As a reminder, your enrollment drives staffing. So when you see districts get into trouble with being way overstaffed, it's because, in my opinion, they haven't done a good job with the projections of enrollment and then allocating staff based on those projections. You have other staffing that are funded by categorical programs and such, but with the basic ed staffing, that's driven by enrollment. So we did that in the fall. We reanalyzed enrollment projection in February. We made adjustments for the building staffing. And since then, we've been working on building staffing plans with our principals. And basically, bottom line is we're using the budget reduction plan as our roadmap on what levels of staffing that we're going to provide or that we've provided for every department and building. So that's been going on all along. Staffing's the biggest component of our budget. It's 84% of our budget. So that's the key piece, and that's been ongoing for months. Last month or 2 months ago, I started diving into projecting our our revenues, and also our material supplies and operating costs. So right now I'm deep into budgeting all of those different, the MSOCs, what we call them, and the revenue projections. And people like Christy and Jeff are instrumental in that process as well, because they put together draft budgets for their programs. And those get sent my way, and then I go through them and ask questions, and then we together come up with budgets for those programs. So we're in the midst of that. So there's always this dead time that we can't come out and say, because the people are like, well, where are we at? You know, what are the numbers? Kevin asked me that. And I'm saying, okay, we don't have a bottom line yet, because what happens is all of this information gets put into this big pot, and the systems we run these reports out of the system. Probably our goal is by the end of June to have a draft budget out of the system. And then we go to the balancing process where we're looking at every program. Are we balanced with revenues and expenditures? And if we're not, why? And that kind of thing. So we're actually in a really good spot right now. And as far as along as we are, I'll have a little bit more of an update at the study session in June. But again, I won't have a final budget at that point, but I can give you an update at that time.
And then remember, as we get into July, one of the big things within July is the adoption of the budget. And as you recall, last year, we brought it to you in July, and that was one of the times that the board as a whole decided, hey, we need more time on this. And so we do have the ability to adopt in August as well. And that may be the same case. Our hope is that we've tried to keep you involved throughout the course of the year and knowing what's going on, but still, until Chris runs the final numbers and gets a draft budget where we can really see, we think that all of our projections are going to be in the right place, but time will tell. And then you'll know, and then that will make some decisions for you as whether it's a budget that you can adopt and be confident in, or if that needs some more time and some more tweaks and investigation by Chris and I before we bring it back to you.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions on the budget update? We'll move on to item B, which is the enrollment
Okay,
update.
enrollment. So enrollment as of May, you saw in my email to all staff that we saw a decrease of 27 FTE from April to May, which is a lot larger than we've seen in prior years from April to May. We're now sitting 4.4 FTE under projection, I should say. So we're just slightly under projection. That's actually not a bad place to be. If we can be between 10 and 20 over, I like over better than under, because you're not getting the funding when you're under projection, but a small amount like this doesn't impact us really with a $65 million budget. So I'm hoping we hold our numbers for our count coming up in June. And I think at that point, we're going to be in actually really good shape compared to our projections. So I feel really good about that this year.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments on the enrollment update? Good. All right, we'll move to the third item, which is a financial status update.
So this financial status update is as of April. April, as most of you know, and probably all of you know, is always the month that we bring in a lot of tax revenue. We also see our levy equalization allocation come in. So just to summarize, we saw a little over $2 million in taxes come into the bank from our levy into the general fund, and about $760,000 in LEA revenue. So when you look at this, we're 66.67% through the school year, which ends August 31. We've received 65.9% of our budgeted revenues, and we've expended 62.2% of our budgeted appropriations. So we always lag a little bit more on our expenditure side. We do have 62 is a little bit lower than we typically are at this point in time. Normally we're within 3%, but we're not too far off. So we're that far. You can see there $12.2 million in the fund balance in April. The state adjusts our apportionment payments as we go throughout the year. We always have a lower one in April because we get more taxes. And so in April of any given year, you're going to see the high water mark with our fund balance where we're at. So people may say, well, you got all kinds of money. We're sitting okay. We're in good shape. So we'll see how the rest of the year goes, but projecting still similar, will be higher than what our budgeted ending fund balance was, because remember, we started the year $800,000 more than our beginning fund balance projection. So we're going to be a little bit higher there, but we're looking good. April, or the other funds, ASB is pretty self-explanatory. Debt service fund, we have one more debt payment June 1, so this doesn't reflect that. And also with transportation vehicle fund this month, we're supposed to be receiving the 2 buses that we bought over 2 years ago this month. We haven't seen them yet, so we haven't paid that bill. And then cap projects, we're really winding down, just trying to close out our John Campbell project as we speak. That always is delayed. After you finish a project, it takes a while to get the releases that you need, and so on and so forth. So we're working on that, and we're also starting to work on the closeout on the transportation facility. So that's going really well. Anything to add on those, Kevin? And just the last thing I wanted to highlight, you'll notice some action over at the middle school track. They're starting to set up to start the construction of the track, which is exciting for us. They put the fencing up, I believe, today. Our guys on our maintenance crew, worked on some prep work to get this done. And then the actual construction on the track starts May 28th. So that's just around the corner. So that's exciting stuff for our kids. And that's
Great. Any
all.
questions about the financial status update?
I ran a mile on that track for the first time ever this weekend, and I think it's a little longer than a mile. I think they're longer.
You
than
need to check it.
4 miles. Yeah.
Somebody
That's
needs to go out and measure
That's
it.
an age thing, Jamie. Sorry
That's
to
good.
tell you. I feel the pain.
All right, thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. All right, we're on item number 10 now, which is the superintendent report. And we have a couple of things from Superintendent McKay about as we wind down the school year for the seniors, and also the facilities committee, which will be the second part of his report.
Yeah, just some reminders as this coming week will be really about our seniors, starting off with senior awards night on the 28th. We then have the white coat ceremony on the 29th. We have baccalaureate on the 30th, and then graduation on the 1st. So big week for our seniors. As we get past that week and all the festivities and celebrations with regards to graduation, we then move into the kind of that last week of school, with the last day, remember, unfortunately being on a Monday because we have a snow makeup day, would have been on a Friday. So we will return from that weekend. It is a early release day on that Monday. And then before you know it, we'll be back together for a study session. Indy will be presenting her student rep project. We'll have some budget work as well. And I was thinking, based on maybe some of the conversations that we had tonight about the Since Time Immemorial, maybe have Alicia come in and present some of the materials as well, if time permits. I know it's kind of a tight frame there. So that's that. Also, I have mentioned this multiple times about the great work that the facilities committee has done over the course of the year. And really what you have now is that kind of official step that is now part of the board agenda, the documents there addressed to you from the facilities committee, and their background of what they were posed and their purpose was, and then their end results of what they prioritize. And that was really that committee's responsibility, is to develop a prioritized list of improvement recommendations. And you will see that in that document. There are 7 there. And I'm going to do a shout out to those people because they spent a lot of evenings and time. And one of them happens to be here, Mr. Adams. Thank you for being here. And Ricky, since you are here, do you have anything to say about your experience with the facilities committee team?
No, it was good. Especially for the community survey. There was mostly the community and the facility committee was in lockstep on most of them. There were a couple that were different. Primarily the community thought the first street outside the high school, the middle school was a higher priority, the facilities committee did, and the middle school program. The community thought it was less important. The committee thought it was important.
Yeah, it was, we had a very diverse group with a lot of different opinions on things, and a lot of people did a lot of homework, which was really exciting. For a facilities committee, you never know what's going to happen. You may end up with one person or nobody. And for every meeting we had a very committed group of people who all, I think, although the opinions may have differed at times, they all, I think, believe in the school district and what they want to do to make sure that the future is better with regards to the facilities of the district. How we get there, that's where we had a lot of great conversations. So with that, the other members of the committee, not only with Ricky Adams, but Joel DeLude and Steve DeLude, Jeff Hartwick, Jeremy Hines, Ethan Michael, Emily Nelson, Eric Newmeyer, Mary Schuler, and Rocky Wallace. What was nice about this committee, it was not one of these ones that you had to be at every meeting. So we had people come and go. We were able to communicate via email a lot, get a lot of information with that. And Dan and Derek, thank you for your involvement in the committee as well. And then Chris and Colton and Frank for their work as well with that. And so what you have is those 7 areas. And now the next part of this is to turn it into a revised long-range facility plan. Part of that plan will also involve the study and survey that is done on the analysis of all the different parts that go into facility improvement plans. So those will be coming to you, a draft. My hope is to have a draft to you at the June meeting of what a new facilities plan may look like.
Great, thank you.
You're
Any
welcome.
questions or comments? We've all had several opportunities, I think, to see that list. Thank you, Kevin. We now move on to the Board of Directors Communications. Anybody have anything for the good of the order? I just am impressed by the progress that I think since even my time on the board of the migrant program in particular is just it was a need, I think, and we are making really strong progress on it. You heard them say even a few years ago, we weren't doing what we're doing as a district to try and make it as embrace that diversity and to be inclusive and to find what students need when they need it and to be an equitable school district. So I really appreciate the work that those parents are doing. My gosh, and those kids are doing, and obviously all of our school district employees too. So I wanted to come back to that and especially how grateful we are.
The PAC has done a lot of the planning this year. And so to give them that voice, I really appreciate that tonight because they were able to reflect all the work that they have done. It's not me. It's not even just Edgardo anymore. It is our PAC that is doing a lot of the work and spreading the word and helping us engage families.
It's really great. And speaking of seniors, as Kevin did, I also want to commend the group of senior parents that have been working as they do every year, but this group of 2024 senior parents have been working very hard and the end is near. It's in sight. There's senior parties and baccalaureate that's being planned. They put the banners up and there's been a lot of dedicated people that have done excellent work with that. Amy Ozanich, Elisa's mom, being the leader of that group, has really brought everyone together. So nice work for those senior parents as well. Any other comments?
A quick comment. I just want to thank the community, people like Ricky, people like Aubrey, people that are reviewing the books from the community. I really appreciate the community kind of stepping up and filling some of those roles and being voices that are heard, and not only just voices that are unhappy, but also are willing to step in and get involved. So you're the one I'm thanking, looking in the eye, thank you, but as a community, I appreciate it. So thank you.
It's always great. We had a big crowd tonight and it's always great to see that many people come and be involved and invested in our schools. So definitely, thank you. Anything else? All right.
Just one last mention, you do have student board representative roles and responsibilities,
Oh, I'm
Dan.
sorry, Kevin.
It's okay.
That's right. So we have a timeline. God, I got excited.
We've,
I
I
have a
just,
timeline
I'm
here.
not gonna go through this. It's attached. You can go through it, but this is the process we go through in order to bring on up to two new student representatives on the board. You'll see the timeline. We followed and adjusted. Important to know, we'll start to communicate this the last week of school when our juniors may have a little bit of interest, but really throughout the summer, they'll have the opportunity to apply anytime during the summer. And then we'll advertise it when we return to school, at the cutoff date being that first Friday of the first, or the following Monday of the first week of school. So I know it's out. And I do know for sure that our current juniors who are seniors next year are planning to return and are excited about the opportunity to be senior school board student representatives.
Awesome. Thank you very much. All right. No further notes, no further comments, meeting adjourned. Sarah, I did not help you at all right there.
Gentlemen, you already signed? Yes. Just doing there.